Hello guys, this is Jerry speaking. Welcome to Book Reviews episode 19, and today we read you Street Gang episode chapter 18 the book, and we're gonna wrap up with the upwards and final thoughts of the book. There will be 2 episodes for this wrap up of the book, so let's just read it now in chapter 18 the book and see what we got, shall we? See what we got. We already have finished chapter 17. So now what we're going to do now is, we're on chapter 17. Where are you? Chapter 18. Chapter 18 is... Wait, hold on. One moment, folks. Chapter 18 is over here. Epilogue. Okay, that's where we're at. Okay. We're on page, 3. We're going to be finishing up in 340, but okay. See where this is going. Okay. We're going to be on chapter 18. 295 of the page. Okay, chapter 18. The 90s were a time of transition from Sesame Street, as the original arcadiages would pronounce it, and builders in the Enterprise faced changes in the cultural landscape, trials of the show, and the show's own minority. Everything can happen to the family, happen to those of us who work on Sesame Street, says Dougie Singer, whoever her share of the challenges as the executive producer of the show during the period when its docent in preschool television was trendish. She had made tense days and different messages to deliver, but the worst moment came on the afternoon in early January, just 8 days into the new decade. On January 9, 1990, the Austrian New York police raced onto Stony Lodge Hospital, a 61-bed psychologic factory in Saarbrücken, Westchester County, where Northern Callaway had fallen into violent rage. Wow, this is sad. Striking the staff of citation would pronounce it. Police described Callaway as agitated and troubled as they arrived and slowly managed a barrier around him, not wishing to make matters worse with sudden movements. Callaway clearly did not want to be handcuffed, and so ensued. The more Callaway struggled, the more danger he posed to himself and others. While he was being subdued, he went into fighting seizure and then dropped on the floor. And what came as a shock. Even the hospital's trained staff, Callaway was just 41 years old when the cardiac arrest. He was transported by ambulance to the nearby Phillips Hospital where he pronounced dead arrival. It felt the singer to break the news on Callaway's death into Sesame Street's cast and crew. The hardest one to tell was how Allison Bartlett, singer recalled. She loved Norvin when she came on the show. They worked in Hooper's store together. He mentioned her. They fought. They're still both she's still a teenager, Bartlett whatever Callaway's ups and downs. As tragically as anyone on the set, even as she has good reason to be wary of him, he showed up unannounced one day at Regalia High School and proposed to her. It was becoming the incident, and to number which Callaway bit music coordinator Dave Epson, the actor who had automatically been dismissed. He had finally ran out of second chances with a corporation that by all rights could have been surviving several ties with him after he rampaged Nashville. Wow, this was sad. Next page. We have to let him go because the thing got so bad, Singer said. By the late 80s, um, Conway has become useless on the set and a burden. He would stare around the scene and look like he was had potato chip crumbs on his face, said Carol Spinney. I wonder why the makeup people did wipe around his mouth. He was so out in this of it, he didn't check the mirrors, so that he looked great for the camera. The last time I got really used to him, he only had one line to say because he couldn't remember a second sentence. They shoot one sentence at a time and they changed the camera angle. In the early years of the show, he had many interesting, wonderful ideas, and we really cared for this character, Singer said. After the incident in Nashville, I have a hard time with the front office convincing them that still could keep Northern on the show. It was a part of me that he was extremely ill, so I fought to keep him, Singer said. You don't fire people because they're very sick, and I agree with that. It was only felt the Singer as executive producer to dismiss Callaway. I called Northman's psychologist to find out the best way to break the news to him, but the doctor saw me as a villain. Wow, as we will help. She said, 2 of us met Northman at a restaurant because our bosses have suggested we made it a public place. Northman actually took it well, spanking me for all the orders he had. Singer was revealed that Callaway did not cause the sense. And I seriously hope it was sad to see him go in the past 3 decades. The Westchester County Coroner's Office in Valhalla performing Officer Callaway cause of death listed in the coroner's report for case number 1990-0079 was exhaustive, cautious, now more committed, referred to as an excited dormant syndrome, EDS for short. A criminal analyst revealed traces of and some synthetic drugs, carmazes, and fluoride in tissue, but no evidence of cocaine or recreational drugs of any kind. Most who succumb to EDS have been under the influence of illegal substances. Callaway was laid to rest following the celebrity attended memorial service in Alsing. It was some time since his colleagues from Sesame Street had since seen or heard from him. Most grieve with the loss in private. When something happened in the news, I was often think, I wonder what Northman would think of this. So Susan Mazzano said, somehow he lives on. He was a man of tremendous energy and potential. He could sing, he could dance, he could tell jokes, he could write music, he could produce. She said, followed by a long pause. But he also always wanted it now. Today, Mazzano is married and mother of Gabrielle Rose Reagan, who played Maria's daughter, Gabby, for 2 seasons of Sesame Street. Her daughter is now at the same age Selena was when they first stepped onto the Sesame Street set. Mazzano smiled commentarily, would pronounce it, with one eyebrow raised. When she spoke out of how she Conway broke a television barrier back then, almost at a whim. When I first auditioned for Sesame Street, the script had it that David and Maria were off up against terminate doors and was making out. Like a sense out of West Side Story, she recalled. The internal shooting scripts weren't written that way. So it was Norman and I would decide that David and Maria would go steady. Okay. We played it up that way, taking it that as far as we possibly could. Joel did not encourage it, but the writers pick up on the right away. Maria and David gave Sesame Street that add dimension of teen romance. It was sad. But they're better than fans of Sesame Street. Remember Calloway just did that way as the handsome charmer who helped out Mr. Hooper in the store and had a thing for the Latina who used to curl up with a book and the fire escape that ran up in the side of a brownstone Sesame Street. I once gave a speech at university, and a professor in her late 30s came up to me, as I recall. She said, "You're Norman, one of the J-Lo and P. Diddy of my generation." When no one's looking, Northwestern University freshman 70 designer tore a full page out of a stray copy of the Chicago Tribune, went happily in the work way back in the dorm. May 16th, 1990 has begun. Even better for the dominant commission student from Pittsburgh. As she had taken Harlan famously news with the would-be puppeteer, the Muppets were given a passionate performance with Walt Disney World, a place where the public could celebrate the zaniest Disarmino and Esmond Barney with a huge singing voice. Though she just might venture down there to see them in performance someday, and perhaps there would be an internship possibility. During the first year living at the Communications Radio College of NEU, this all have gained the freshman 15. And then some, she said she had become slightly self-conscious of her appearance. I have a bit bad ladies. Then the early 90s perm. She at once told her hometown Pittsburgh Post Gazette. It was obvious early on in college when that look mattered. I was a character actor who didn't look right for character parts. When I look into watching the old Bugs Bunny cartoons or the Muppet Show, I realized how motivated the humor is. Watching old Sesame Street and Muppet Show episodes, I've begun to think puppetry would get the way to do character would work without it mattering what I would look like. Next page. It helped that she already had been reported of comic voice that allowed her to play a size, shape, I'm not going to say the S word, or species. As I went back to my dorm room that day, saw the message board at the door and the note from my friend Ryan. It said, "Sorry about Jim Henson. The Sorrow didn't know what to make of it. The previous week, there was a bit of a campus hawks. Where had been a widely rumor that Steve Martin had died." God! Really? Anyway, in the age where most students did not have a television in their rooms. You gotta be kidding me. That just made no sense to me. Steve Martin is still alive in his 70s. Don't make fun of Steve. Anyway, and with no internet handy, some pranks were easy to pull off in a vacuum in the rarely lively college campus. So that where my heart headed. Some sicko had started a new rumor. After all, there's no news of Jim Henson dying in a term trip that I have to just swipe. It's just it didn't take long before I learned that the horrible news was true. And I agree, Jim Henson passed away. A friend at the campus who had attended the Jim Henson Company the previous summer called his friend Craig Sherman in New York to verify the report. Sherman would then walk into public relations department at the Henson that had been following nearby every call to have come into the building that morning. The rest of the company was in shock behind closed doors. Asia would pronounce it, walk around Northwestern in the days. As well, wherever I wound up going to classes that day with mine of birth. She said, I do remember that I suddenly signed up to use the dorm's screening room for the rest of the day and into the night, and invited friends to come and watch Muppet movies and Muppet shows and Sesame Street and everything else Muppet related that we can dig up on VHS. In silence that night, the group watched a PBS special produced by Children's Television Workshop, directed and hosted by Joan Stone. There's a tradition at Northwestern painting the large rock that sits in the center of the cluster of South Campus buildings, the operational said. Organizations to do it to promote events and whatnot. I thought that maybe I should paint the rock as a tribute to Jim that night, but no one was available to help. It was a very big rock, so Fahrenheit and some Serenades stay up all night to paint it. So my friend Kathy and I got some street chalk and did some sidewalk art. We drew a picture of Kermit and Ernie with the caption, "Thanks, Jim." That following week, the Abjurail saw snippets of a Henson memorial on the evening news. The dorm lounge had been the reception, and the news only deserved about 15 or 30 seconds of the story. She said, I didn't know any of those people who were singing and waving from butterflies, but they're like many of them. The tears fell from the man I did not know. It was solved that Jim Henson didn't live to meet Desario, a third-generation Muppet performer, and it would be found the rarest of the rare. A self-made female puppeteer who would not only nail a range of inspired voices and master the psychological challenges, snag a Tony nomination for Avenue Q, a musical that simulated spoof and solidate Sesame Street. Jim Henson and Jerry Nelson had been shooting the breeze in Central Florida one day, watching a video playback of the scene just taped at the Walt Disney World in Orlando. I said to Jim that I was hoping to could retire soon. Nelson recalled, "This is not happening." But anyway, with that, Henson recalled, "You are not going to retire," and I agree with Henson, he said firmly. Nelson, slightly taken aback, turned directly to his boss, a bit surprised. Nelson was getting a point in life where there was enough money to come into this concern slowing down a bit. Plus, he just lost a daughter to psychotic fibrosis and had been carrying the weight of grief for many years. Henson had graciously given his colleagues a percentage of such projects as Fraggle Rock, the actual HBO series. Now it airs on Apple TV Plus, by the way. Now it's called Fraggle Rock. I can't remember the show now, but that's just me. They use puppets to exterminate the relationship between species. After Nelson had spent so many years working away from home from the Muppet Show and some Muppet movies, his nest at Cape Cod, a cozy retreat now near Promenade Town, was breaking him and his wife. The good lived and waited, but Henson wanted to hear none of it. Baby, weird us out of here. Wow, Henson then said to Nelson with a laugh. In my case, it's getting closer to that. That comment would take a high quality after Nelson and a group of colleagues returned to New York from Florida in the spring of 1990. David Ruman, a young puppeteer from Chicago, who was new to the Muppets, remembered that Henson has looked ill and drained while they were shooting at Disney World in Orlando. Wow. When the performers reunited in New York to look at the commercial, Henson failed to appear. Their leader was to be a no-show was an extraordinary event, and the puppeteers waited for hours. Nobody knew where he was, Ruman said. Henson was also failed to appear later that day to a party to promote a PBS special that would air on the following night. Back home in Chicago, Ruman was awakened by a late-night call from Richard Hunt, alerting him that something was seriously wrong with Henson. Richard said he was on his way to a hospital and that he called, next page, me and as soon as he learned anything more. Ruman said. Around 2 a.m., Kevin Clash called saying, "Get back here to New York right away." Ruman took the first flight of O'Hare and sped the Henson workshop where colleagues had begun gathering in early morning hours. By then, Henson was gone. Everyone was walking around like zombies, Ruman said. We started talking about the memorial service right away. It helped everyone get focused. Joan Cooney was told about Henson's death at dawn. She called Doggy Singer around 7 a.m. I was in a sleepy daze, Singer said. I didn't know that Jim has been sick. So my first reaction was disbelief. Jim has been such a workaholic. So many times I seen him work like with the flu. People told me how was he tough out of the case, walking phenomena for a year before in London. He had his most powerful will, and I don't think he listened to his body. He just went ahead and worked his way through illness. Later in the morning, Emily Kinsey, who was driving into Manhattan from Westchester County, wires me at Children's Television Workshop. When she heard a radio report of Henson's death, almost drove off the road, she said. It turned out that all of us had heard the news on our way to work. So in a spooky way, when we were experiencing it together, puppeteer friend Bill was recording voiceovers in the Young Roberts Cam advertising agency when the casting director broke the news. For years, I couldn't talk about that day, she said. But now I believe it was that if Jim Henson somehow could think have been informed about he died, he was said, interesting. He would have he'll have just accepted it, taking it with a grain of salt, and not wondering about choices that he made along the way. He would not have said, "Gee, I wish I could have gone to the doctor." I remember one time in a set, I saw Jim back was wounded. Brill continued. I said, "Jim, you're bleeding from the back." And he said, "It was no big deal. Jim just didn't do the doctor thing." Bernie Billerstein's eyes was a graduate, and his voice cracked with emotion when he talked about his clients for years. I questioned Jim, he was going to die. Burleson said, shaking his head, when a man of 53, when he felt he was then going to die anytime soon. Well, in instructions for this funeral, instructions that he meant to be read aloud. Not only did he wrote to his kids, mentioned he wanted to speak at the memorial. He also inducted his purposes for the entertainment. A little rectory he had. My bet is that Jim felt his kids would do his wrong, and he didn't want to leave anything to chance. Other numbers of Henson's corps and advertisers were also monetized by the letters left behind. Muppet Show executive producer David Laser said Jim copied me on that letter. It was promotion and it spoke to me. Why else would a man would be so vital? Who loved life so much? Who loved being happy and making other people happy? Write a letter that was so serious and intent. I have only heard him mentioned multiple twice in the years I have known him. We were flying to Los Angeles at a time when his son John was about to face a serious operation. But we had a deadline to meet. Jim turned to me and said, if anything were to happen to any of my kids, I don't know how it could handle it. But that was a big statement with someone who never talked about monetarily. The only one who was time was that letter. This was the man who loved having good time gambling clubs in England. He threw major clubs parties. This man had love, fun, and show up and the characters very happy and international outlook. His values was not materialistic. Even though he liked to dress up and eat in nice places, it was one in the universe. One of the universe. You could look in the sunset and it would feed him. It was always someone else got $1 million check. Jim was about the harmony with people in the nature. There's a reason why the Muppets are different colors, shapes, and sizes. He have never had racist. He was never having racist five in his head, and I agree with that. He celebrated everyone's difference. Some of the characters are cranky, some are fist, some are that, but they are pals together. They stick together advertisely. There's a lesson I've learned from Jim just by being around him. Burleson said Jim loved being Jim. And he should show it. Could show it, especially during the later years of his here in Los Angeles with Missouri Sweetheart, and his following hair, who would figure Jim Henson to be a guy who would rent a yacht, way you pronounce it, Y-A-C-T-H-T, way you pronounce it. But I took him on a cruise one year, and he took me to the next, celebrating our 25th birthday anniversary together, Jim had a love for Aztec things, for beautiful things, and a beautiful woman. This obvious person who died in 2008 had a loving version himself and shared it in glass, a one-of-a-kind gift for a man who would spend weeks working on supplies for someone else he held dear. During the memorial service, Frank Oz provided a heart-to-top example. One Christmas season, Henson approached Oz backstage during the season of the Muppets, which featured on Saturday Night Live. It was just prior to dress rehearsal, and the other guys had gone off to lunch. Jim said Jim and I were just hanging out in the halls. He just come on the camera, and Jim said he was in a quiet, resting way. Frank, I need to go in the dressing room with you. If you can take off all of your clothes, I could take a picture of you naked. Ugh. That is so gross. But anyway, next page. I said, "Whoa, what?" And he said, "I really want need to take a picture of you naked." We discussed this for a while, and I said, "Alright." So we went into the dressing room, and I took off my clothes, butt naked, locked the door, of course, and he said, "No, now pose. Put your hands on over your genitals," which I glad to do. He said, "Bend over forward, and look into the camera and stay up a stock," which was not difficult at the time. So I bent over and he looked at some photos of me. So I dressed and we did the show. Wow. Some days later, Henson, um, Oz received a sculpt while hanging that was entitled "Burt and Self Conservation." That was so gross. But anyway, it featured Burt with his arms holding the ledge, filled with tiny toy birds and faux miniatures of Henson's workshop and employees. Wow. Henson has painted layers of his artwork like Earth straight stations, which are everywhere. The layers of Bert's mind, and his soul. Wow. Oz said, and ripping those layers, he painted beautiful pictures. When you pick it up and to merge it, Oz knows that Bert's pimples has been cut out. Wow. Offered an invitation to look through like a hole in the fence. You look inside Bert's brain. Now I am naked. Wow. Oz said. I knew it had gone a good reason. Trust it was a martyr of everything lasting relationship. If Jim Henson had yours, there wasn't anything he wouldn't do. Bert and Oz, two conservators are funny, were Henson's wingman, and I agree with that. It was very hilarious. Henson trusted Joan Cooney as well. They exchanged truth and confidence with ease and reality, read each other's moods. Laughter permeated Jim's work, that which he adored most with his work. With the Muppets, Cooney explained. This is not to say that Jim did not have his down moments and darker side. His darker side was readily apparent, but without it, he would not have many fantasy adventure films like The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth, which is awesome. Both did not do so well in the box office, and Shirley panned, and I felt worried. Jim had the film fall after Dark Crystal failed to meet the audience expectations. I can tell you that he was seriously depressed, and we were worried about him, and I felt worried about him as well. Cooney said moviegoers sense a lack of superstitions. In Henson's tackling of serious themes, Jim had a serious, earnest slide, but there wasn't much there. The NOS was all in the comedy. The program at Henson's Memorials was prepared in 5 days. Martin G. Baker, an Englishman who produced The Muppet Show, Fraggle Rock, and the Jim Henson Hour, coordinated the logistics. Colin Kenworthy, vice president of production of Henson Associates and directors of the London-based Henson Creators Shop, told the Washington Post in June 1990 that work on the 2.5-hour memorial was the most moving experience I ever had. Someone said it was the only memorial service I had ever been to that excuse me, Ben, you could take on the road. It was a wonderful mixed of us. That we were disagreeing in many ways, having very strong views. Trying not to say what would Jim have done, There was a lot of disagreements. And by the end, we came up with a service that was a real achievement. That's the best hope for the future. That you can have strong creative talent unlimitedly. Martin Baker produced it as he was producing a big show. Craig Simon recalled after a vote, the Henson family turned down CNN's request to broadcast it live. Wow. The service was videotaped for possibility in keeping the material comprehensive regarding the Jim Henson comedy for its history. Wow. The service was spontaneous outpouring, said Salmon. Very little out of it was scripted. In preparation for it, crushers and employees accumulated friendly butterflies on wands to hand out to attendees. The gesture with was undertaken not only to honor the spirit of Henson's more friendly work, but almost to provide to a kind of background character with this first scene. Both types of butterflies have been used in the many of Henson's productions. Simon said Jim was working with some character in the background. It was just as likely to have picked a butterfly and anything else, and I agree with that. Sheeman, who handled guest relations to the 600 to 700 invitees, said the previous preparations proved a godsend. Everyone was so numb. We all were looking for something to do. By the time the guests were escorted to the pews, Sheeman realized to have no seat in his own. But the Fouriers, who provided all the weekly arrangements of the Henson Company and who had done the flowers for memorial service, has been put aside for two folding chairs in the side closet. Craig and the Fouriers extended while sat together. Wow. The mother performers were seated together for the memorial service. Housewife recalled friend Bill. Respected Henson's wishes. The puppeteers were in all black. Brill chose a purple and white dress. Their colleague Anne had walked through countless challenges before, but nothing approached having the muscles through strength to go get through this day. There was a lot of emotion and a lot of memories, a lot of candles, said Brill. Quiet from the beginning of the memorial to the end. I have never been inside St. John to divine before, and the overwhelming majesty of the place, and the sight of the huge crowd that came to honor Jim. People who are strangers to him moved me deeply. The emotionality of Jim influenced how beloved a figure he was to so many people all over the world. Really hit me. Next page. Anyway. At one point, we all got on stage to sing the Rainbow Connection, and I just mouthed the words because I couldn't stop crying. I remember being on all of those gold. A wonderful British puppeteer who had been working on the Muppet Show, who sang Bring Him Home. That beautiful song from Les Maybes, Babel's way to pronounce it. She never lose her composure. I don't know how she did it. And of course, after so many had spoken about Jim, there's a long silence. And the next scheduled speaker has missed their cue, will be called, but then there was a murmur in the body of the church, and everyone began to realize there was a great difference Beyond that altar, Big Bird was slowly walking towards us. As he walked, he looked left and right, and the congregation, we pronounce it, as if he was a bewildered child. Wow. It was exactly what a 6-year-old would do. The more the congregation grew and grew as more people saw him approaching. It was quite a while for him to get in the front. When he finally reached the spotlight, he began to sing. It was breathtaking, rank-taking. Yeah. Big Bird was never so three-dimensional as he was that day. He was in the commercial, so questioning, wondering by the loss, and they're so brave. Just as he had for the taping of the episode of Mr. Hooper's death, Carol Spinney dug down deep and it came up with a performance steep and literally. As he began, Big Bird seemed slightly baffled and dazed at first, perhaps began because of the artist underneath all the yellow dyed feathers was the artist who owned his initial hood to Jim Henson. Being hired to perform Big Bird, an Oscar, has been the breath of the lifetime. Although it took more than 10 years of struggle for Spinney to be impersonated at the level commensurate with his abilities and his character's renown, his salary was shamefully low for show business standards. He did begin to spread flowers in the 80s. More than that, Spinney met and married the love of his life thanks to Sesame Street. It occurred after his first wife left him. With the three Spinney children and tall, she done right off, Spinney said. She had it that I was in television. Even when I got Big Bird and accomplished that, I was just have a dream of doing as a kid. And I was on the best children's show on television, just as I have predicted to my mother so long ago. Well, but my wife used to say, I wish to God you weren't in the show business, and I felt worried. I embarrassed her, but when she left, I just vanished. My little boy Ben was just a year old, and I have a bad spell living without my children. But now I'm recording session 1973. Spinney has been a young woman from the Children's Television Workshop Research Department who had been enlisted to watch over some children called to sing. It wasn't the first time that she had been tried to her. Twice before he had asked Deborah out once as her dad at the Children's Television Workshop at another time at the Children's Television Workshop Christmas party, only to learn that she was married. The third time, it was Deborah who approached Spinney who created the scene in 1912 Memorial, which I'll get back to that some other time. She seemed to know me, but I didn't know how. She told me that since our marriage had recently ended, she was living with her family on Long Island. I was about to go on a tour with the show, but I was promised to call her when I got back. Those months later, when I met her at the Children's Television Workshop, and we walked towards Central Park, we held hands on our way to the pattern on the green. But before we finished dinner, we both knew in our hearts that we would be married. 13 days after our first date, we were walking down Broadway doing 67th Street. I was completely overpowered with the most fantastic, wonderful feeling of shouting Bird out, "You will marry me, won't you?" And she said, "Yes." I spun around and kissed her, and already more in love than I ever have been in my life. And it's been that way ever since. Wow. Bernie Burleson has a misfortune of being listed next to the memorial service or after Big Bird. Jim told me to never follow Big the Bird, he said. There's a ripple of laughter in the pause. He then began in earnest. In the business where the only one who shouts and loudest usually gets the more attention, Jim Henson rarely spoke above a whisper. You have to lean in to hear him most of the time, but it was always worth the effort. David Laser and I knew how loud his whisper it was. It was a man with a vision. And I invoked his greatest appeal with the symbol of human emotions. The purest of ideas he was not above using advanced technologies means to achieve his goals. My friend Jim, by the most defiance of genius, but not like Edison suggested. Edison said genius was 1% inspiration and 99% present inspiration. Way to pronounce it. With Jim, I think it was about 55%. Not 55, 50, 99%. Yeah, 50. Excuse me, I misspelled. But anyway, his ability to create with whole worlds of people and things it was well documented, and what as well has been legacy forever. But after coming up with the concept, he worked tirelessly on every phase on the process to see what that was the best that can possibly be. As a rule, professions and the real pain they drive the people around them crazy in their single-minded search for exclusive. But Jim inspired people to be better than they thought they could be. To be more creative, more daring, more egregious, and ultimately more successful, and he did it without raising his voice. The whisper will stay with us for a long time. Now we'll just have to listen to a little horror. Excuse me. The 5 Henson children stood spiritual around the mother, a good 10 paces beyond. The Henson daughters and sons were emotionally dressed. Next page. In shades of blue, green, and tan. Additionally, intruding somber colors. Jane Henson wore a drape, muted, monochromatic outfit, consisting of a full-length drap skirt, topping it by a long sleeve, softly pirate blouse and boss like duster, a flowing muscle and Zabel, without introducing himself, she began her remarks with a sentence that seemed like an answer as an unasked question. I did ask for live flowers, she said. They came to Connie of Corner's flowers. Wow. Addressing the harassment without notes, Jane Henson was at once grounded and a bit floaty. Her remarks gradually spread racial, but not in the traditional sense. Each flower is chosen because it was a perfect flower, designed by a perfect mark maker, she said. Each flower holds a complete message that Jim would want to share with you. Its beauty, and its perfection, its difference, its beginning and its end. I don't want to pretend that I know what happens after this life, or that Jim knew what happened after this life, but he gave great plans. Wow. Not know that, but anyway. Okay. Her opposition, achieve it, knowing laughter from those who are aware of Jim Henson's validations were mediums, psychics, and or gayers in his belief that that is entirely possible for the earthbound to receive messages from the next world. He's consulted seers and considered that progressive novelization. Sure hope that somebody up there knows what we're doing this down here, because Jim is possibly busy, very busy, very pretty busy. Jay Hansen said, offering thoughts of who are in the afterworld might be available who to work on the Everett project. She included Don Salim, the invisible prankster who designed Burn Ernie, puppeteer Burr Tillstorm, the television pioneer, an entertainer businessman who knew much enough to own the trademark, the Kugel friend, Kugel Ollie, Bill Bard, who proved early on who no less a figure than Walker Cronkite in the CBS Morning Show. Wow. That television provides and such a suspension of disbelief for viewers, it allows people and puppets to enjoy and parody cider and commentary of Rufus Rose, the marionette builder who sculpted the original Howdy Doody, with a single flourish. She offered a short history of puppets in the 20th century pop culture. Maybe more than anything else, she continued. Jim would want to reconnect with his mother, his brother, and his grandmother, dear, who would he always credited to be his greatest inspiration. Looking briefly toward his now adult children, she said he stayed with us long enough to have given us certainly enough everything we need. If we are strong enough to carry on mostly, she added, I just think now this is only us, his family. This is only his kids. I'm only his wife. They had messy rooms. I burned the dinner. He didn't came home. The dog died. Whatever, all the stuff. It's only us. After the brief pause, she get back on track. Sometimes, because every one else was working, I would be used for interviews. She said. The press would ask, but do you have any ideas if would be this get this big? Oh man, what I didn't know, it was get gotten this big. I just didn't know. Then she said 30 plus years removed from the San Fran's days when she performed on her knees at WRC. Wow. The University of Maryland cued we have long ago caught Jim Henson's eyes. Could have been grown as a performer, but left in the Muppets to raise their children in Connecticut. And their role in life beyond became decidedly material. At some point in my marriage, when was like one of fully in. Sorry about that, but anyway. And the winded relationship in Rayville. Jim was left dominated in the suburbs while Jim Henson, where was I? Culminated the globe for reasons known only to husband and wife. The opera retained legally separated for the long spell. At the time of Jim Henson's death, votes for divorce seemed a certainty, which is not happening. Henson had already bought out her half of the business. Why hasn't called for her when he would have been severely ill is a mystery. One of the biggest puzzles of my life had been why Jim sent for Jane at when we was trying to give the divorce for her. Joe Cooley said, "I guess it was that sick he kind of wanted mommy or something, but he had no use for her for years, and he certainly wanted out. Send for her to allow Jane to become the widow Henson. Yeah, this is what the most unfortunate, forgivable thing. He gave her an advantage that she had for in years. Jane Henson has ardently reserved her role as wife and caretaker. Wow. And then later as co-founder of the Muppets and keeper of the flame. That was something that none of the woman Henson dated could claim. Looking out in the calendar of the packed cathedral, a scene reminiscent, what pronounced of the state funeral, she expresses gratitude to the tragedy. The reason you touch is because Jim touched some special place in you that you don't know all the light and all the truth and all the love that there is to know. And I hope that you will take whatever he has given you, to let it help you to enjoy life in the fullest. Because he always did. But always with a little pain and a little sorrow that gives richness. Okay. Sorry, I was keep running my eye like that. But anyway, where was I? But this tributes to two personal of Sesame Street occurred within days of each other. One before a condition of thousands, the other before a television audience in the hundreds of thousands. But it's been 15 months since composer, arranger, lyrics Joseph G. Rexwell died from complications from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer of immature. Next page. System at Lawrence Hospital in Bronxville, New York. Just 3 days shy of his 52nd birthday. The breakdownness of nearly everyone, including those in his circle, Raposo, have been living with this disease for 10 years and have secretly undergone term vastly. The diagnosis came when I was about a month pregnant with our son Andrew, said Pat Collins, a journal television presence in New York who reviews theater and film. Joe has some lumps under his arms, and in his groin, so he went to the doctor who referred him to a specialist. And I remember that day, the appointment vividly, sitting across from the doctor's desk when he said it was a non-oxygen module, we pronounce it. Our first question was, what's that mean? You could immediately read from the doctor's face it was not something you want. Joe said, Pat is pregnant. Will I live and to see the child graduate high school or college? The doctor did respond, and Joe said, I really want an answer. The doctor said, no, you won't. So sad. Joe pressed him, well, I'd love to see him to be in the first grade. The doctor just said, Joe's a very tough thing. That was a moment we decided to move forward, and was Joe's desire and wish from the day one that was no one should know about the diagnosis. We decided that our business manager, the guy who paid the bills, had to know, but that was it. We were living in Bronxville, and I went to New Orleans of establishing an account in the pharmacy near Carnegie Hall, where our offices were. We filed provisions that would become Bronxville's, a little place where people talk, including Apartment 96 followers that really wanted to keep a lid on this. We haven't been smart and cover our bases. Joe's word were, I do not want to be seen as a patient. Anyone who has had a relative, a dear friend, or a pal involved in the battle of disease recognize how the word thanks. There goes and so. Isn't it terrible that you directly excuse me, terrible that you has cancer? Wow. Oh yeah, I keep mumbling myself. But anyway, and then they ever cut you more slack and start treating you directly. Wow. Joe said, I haven't none of that. After everyone learns you have a disease, and says all the appropriate things about as terrible it is, they think it was a good game to be able to finish the season. Will we finish the album or movie? It was going to be alive when we performed this at Lincoln Center. Joe's a great guy, and we were going to miss him, but we can't use him because of by the time X is going to happen, he might not still be there. Pretty soon, everyone's done working with you. Joe wanted to make sure that he could keep going and not be marginalized, we pronounce it. No matter how many days you have left, you would make everyone count. And Joe was not a person who would crawl into bed and pull up the quilt and never come out again. He used to go for the chemo really early in the morning, place on the east side before too many people were around. Most people going through is lose weight and good grunt. Joe will struggle with weight issues in all his life. Used to say to me, I'm the only man, only son, but I'm not gonna say the B word in the video. But anyway, of Chemo who is not losing weight. You think I'm the least that is going out there? Near the end of Joe's life, Jim Henson got me aside and said, "There's something very wrong with Joe. You guys tell me what it is." I said, "I love you, Jim, but no, I don't." You're right, and he does have some issues. You got to ask him. You can't have me to tell you. He said, "I can't." I said, "Well, I don't know." Then it's kind of standoff, isn't it? All I can tell you is he's absolutely living with what he got. That's all I can tell you, babe. And that was it. People didn't know he was a something, but no one could cross the line to ask him. The only person he ever told was Wonder Cronkite. They would go staring a lot, and one day he would come when he comes back from on the little trips on the Winnie. He said, I told Water that because I had to tell someone, if you can't trust America's most trusted man, who could you tell your secrets to? Cronkite appeared on the PBS tribute to Raposo, a little love letter entitled "Sing Sesame Street's Remembers Joe Raposo." He was the first man to kiss me on the cheek, said Cronkite, who once imagines who was an unlikely candidate to return the favor. Joe was simply this guy who lived on the very top of life. It was jarring at first to see Jim Henson on screen, given that footage of the memorial as just aired on the 6 o'clock news. Henson said, "I think of Joe as being warm teddy bear, always with a hug and a big smile." I saw on PBS News, which I haven't saw ABC News yet, but anyway. Liz Smith, the story of gossip columnist said it was so typical of him to open his love in arms and give you experiences long hug and self-consent when you didn't deserve to have it. Proposal took some Posadas good natural ribbing as well. Joe was such a name dropper, Hansen said. He was the only person that could work into the conversation, all the important people he had seen in the last 6 months, and Barbara Sursland's telephone number. Such harmless talk kept Raposo's ego balloon of love. As Kurt explained, it was one of those magical gifts, I guess, is that it would be annoying with other people, but if Joseph was just, oh my god, he was not going to say it, he did. Somehow you love him for it. Got the phone call, and maybe 1 in the morning. It was Joe, incredibly excited, he said. You have never guessed where I am. I said, no, I probably won't. Next page. Okay. What was that? We're getting close to finish up this book. But anyway, I'm in Frank Sinatra's car, he said. Sinatra was at the time had a mobile telephone installed in the limbo. And a box for viewing the pre-call cell phones era. Postal had a dial-up chirp when Sinatra stepped away. You're the first person I call, he crowed. I'll throw up for him, Kirk said, but it turns out he called everybody else, too. It was a very Joe Raposo moment. Okay? John Cooney once recalled receiving a postcard from Raposo. Excuse me. He had been staying at one of Frank Sinatra's villas. Excuse me. In Palm Springs. On one side of the card was an aerial view of Sinatra's insight. And he had a circle of one of the little houses and written, "That's my room." That was a quintessential how we would pronounce it, Joe. Yeah. Okay, excuse me, I misspoke. But anyway, Joe Raposo contributed 4 tracks to Sinatra's Old Blues, Eyes is Black, a 1973 comeback album that brought the singer out of the premature retirement. The project met with mixed reviews, and some critics dismissed Raposo's "You Will Be My Music" never used to be a ballpark. As showments for a time, Raposo was a Sinatra's good grace. Wow, back when the quoter probably was a composer was a passage, but not Portuguese way to pronounce it. But anyway, there was a tears opposed plainly with proposal class. A lot of elbow nudging when all the people beyond those drop names when forward to say there was a honor to be to his friend. Pat Cullen said the theory about it. Joe's bragging so much, but he was sharing a kind of joy. He did name drop to impress the listener, but to remind himself there was not in the walking room dream. Excuse me. He was actually knew the likes of Sinatra and Cronkite and Richard Rogers, pretty Hadley company. He was like a kid who loved baseball, who grew up to hang around with Hall of Famers. Joe did not fall over the famous. It was his pleasure to be in this company with this truly gifted. It was respect for the rare combinations and this innate talent, hard work, and professionalism. Joe Cooney saw 2 sides of Raposo. He could be the most difficult person imagining with me, she said. Other times we were lovely, dozy, and clothes. Everything would be going fine, and then he would suddenly erupt over something. Like some gross publishing rights item. He actually quit the Sesame Street Code over the music publishing rights issue. And a sort of thing that I didn't even understand. After a few years, he wanted to come back, and so we did a date to meet for lunch at 21. I came into the restaurant and a little bit early before hitting the center of the situation. The major D asked, "Is your person here?" And I said, "No, he isn't here yet." When Joe is actually coming in earlier and sat on the table in back instead at the one at the front where I could have seen him. He sat for 45 minutes. Finally, I was told a waiter where I was going and take a quick look around the tables. Because it did not compare to me that he would be late. You can imagine how awkward this was after this terrible rupture and separation. It haunts me to this day. Even though Joe came back to the workshop, we were never close again. Yet Cooney remained a fan of his and is always quick to praise in his portfolio of work at the television workshop. Hundreds of composed at Brian's Sesame Street and Electric Company, yet for this success in alternate leads. Cooney believes the proposal was belated by its insecurity. There was not enough organizations in the world to meet Joe's expectations, Cooney said. You couldn't build his need. He had the weakest ego of his any person that I could have ever known. It needed to be fed all the time. I was only child. He was the only child of who was going to worship and by his parents. I was only thought that the result of his ego's strength. But sometimes it can be the opposite. It was jealous that Jim that was got so much attention after he went on the air. Jealous that the Europeans and late Americans wanted to adoptions done, but because the Muppets were such a sensation, and yet Joe was a great sensation, genius. Julie said. One way you can tell a true genius from a near genius is that you keep creed. With geniuses, the argument is unstoppable. To move forward our story, we need to take a step back, and I agree. In early 1989, Jim Henson was invited Joan Cooney to lunch at the restaurant at the Sterry Number One Hotel. He kept an apartment that he had news to share. I want you to know that I'm going to sell the company to Disney. I love Disney. And Children's Television Workshop, by the way, it was amazing. Because it owns by HBO Max and not Disney Plus. Because it owns by Disney Max, but that's just me. I don't care. That's just me. He said, I want the kind of creative freedom that I have about the 100 of fundraising. Cooley, not all in shock, told him I'm pleased she was for him. She then provided some news of her own, saying, the time is incredible, Jim. This is not for young yet. That I was not stepping down in November as CEO of the workshop. And that was... yeah. One could almost sense some of his plates slipping underfoot. We were both talking about the big life changes together, Tui said. In August that year, news and the sales created a crackle of excitement, trampling a deal that executives described that as a business association made family entertainment heaven. Disney announced they had signed a letter that said to purchase the Muppets. reported for $100 million to $150 million. As a part of a deal, Henson agreed to a 15-year clothing role, and the production pack was guaranteed that he was reserved to Disney exclusively, and I agree with that. It had made perfect sense to Cooney that Henson had decided to turn, next page, over the classic characters like The Muppet Show and the subsequent Muppet movies, along with the library of Henson's television work, minus Sesame Street, to the Burbank, California-based entertainment company deal that now includes Henson's production company and the core creative talent who work in the United States and the London offices in the Henson creative shop. I definitely disagree. And I love Disney, but why? Because, you see, when Sesame Street aired on HBO Max in the 51st season late this year, that's going to be big enough for me. But that's just me, of course. Jim Henson and Walt Disney had this in common. Both were small-town boys who knew how to establish the characters they created and tap into creative obligations. Even without the social resources worthy of opportunity that's Walt's disposal, Henson has successfully propelled Kermit into the orbit few characters even ever reach, keeping him there for generations. Hence, will be the business worry. Henson will no longer have the shoulder of it if we could sold to Disney. Plus, he could still be around for the fun part, providing Kermit's voice, movements, and hence an experience as a paid performer. Wow. Jim was fine with turning over the classic Muppets to Disney because he was tired of to run the company. Tried to have and raise money for every project. Cooney explained. Plus, Disney was promising to back a movie project that Jim wanted to do. That was huge. Jim didn't run his company like a good businessman. I agree with that, Cooley said. Cooley added, he could never fire anybody. Couldn't accept any plan of downsizing that was drawn up for him by his advertisers. Jim feared that he couldn't face people afterward, just so he kept them on. But on that, Henson's movie project has been obviously over budget, having not been for the steady revenue streaming in for Sesame Street licensed products. The Jim Henson company might have collapsed its own weight. In Henson's proposed business model, the Sesame Street revenue would have continued to pump perhaps $70 million annually into his company while remain out of Disney's reach. It may have been naive for Henson to think that Disney's would have overbooked the small matter. Any progressive buyers would have been one of the Muppets to be part of such a deal. It didn't take long before the executive became a team of Children's Television Workshop began to worry that with a swipe of the pen, Michael Eisner could catch Jim Henson in a weak moment and have it in his hand wine pipe. Cooney said, at the time, Children's Television Workshop was doing better than Disney. Yeah, it was sad. In reaching their preschool audience. If Disney could have convinced Jim to include the trademark of the Sesame Street characters, they actually could have limited our products on their shelves and taming us down. They could have decided to do just about anything to have because their power would be so great. For additional nations, Henson exists from the start of talks with Disney that the Sesame Street characters were off the table, and I agree with that. Eisner, who could be the charming senator, hoped that he had solved Henson's resolve at Disney's lawyers. over years' time. Time to answer messy questions. Over ownership to some of Henson's franchise characters and other properties. Henson also worked on Here Comes the Muppets, a live stage show for the theme park. Wow. On one of their final hunches put together in 1990, Henson have tried to put Cooney's mind at ease, immersing her in the ambition to not only keep Eisner at Bite Bay, but the change and as well to allow the Sesame Street trademarks to be transported to Children's Television Workshop upon his death, on condition that would continue to receive the same cuts he always had for licensing and merchandising deals. Cooney later said Children's Television Workshop would have to agree to those terms in perpetuity. It was at that time Cooney had said that Henson has also burdened himself about misgivings about going forward with the Disney deal. What really caused him massive grief, and I think contributed to his lack of privacy relief or something like that, was the contract position dealing with his personal services. Jim would have been acceptably there for the rest of his life. He would have been permitted to work on Sesame Street for 2 weeks a year, but that was it. Jim was assigned only a 5-year deal for the personal service, not 15. And Disney said no. In fairness, Disney was about to pay him $150 million for what? Jim was feeling a little cage bird. Psychologically, and what killed him. And at one point, Eisner appeared to back away from the scramble to beget Big Bird. Cooney and David Burt attended to build a peace launch at the Henson Workshop with Eisner in that period. Jim was on the phone with the media almost daily about his concerns about the Muppets and Sesame Street. Cooney said to me at one point, if they don't give this up, it's a deal breaker. He told me that, and they finally drop it, and so it seemed. Cooney said Henson went into the initial decision thinking Eisner would be the male Joan Can Cooney. Wow. Just wow. Wasn't Eisner who was giving him headaches so much as it was to Disney lawyers. Before the peace launch, Disney had asked Jim to ask us to the Children's Television Workshop it would agree to not build a theme park within 100 miles of the Disney park. In 1980, however, Children's Television Workshop had operated Sesame Place, a theme park just north of Pennsylvania that was populated later by walk-along Sesame Street characters. Cooney immediately agreed to the separation. That's easy, she said. We weren't about to put a park anywhere near a Disney attraction, and I agree with that. It was sad. Next page. Anyway, anyone was prepared to make a nice and a peace lunch. It wasn't going so well, Cooney said. Michael was absolutely being just his most charming self. He could be so much fun and so funny, but then out of the blue, he said something that stopped Jim cold. David Bray and I completely missed it. We made some reference to the Sesame Street Muppets. But maybe that was feeling so comfortable, so happy to be out of the deal. We didn't catch it, but Jim turned to Michael and said, "You did it again." Michael said, "I did what?" Jim said, "You mentioned Sesame Street." God help me. Michael said, "Jim, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. But damage was done at the moment," Cooney said, and remained a real issue with Jim was deep down. You kids get out of the way, warned Joan Cooney on Chuck carelessly Levin. I got an elephant gun. I don't want to hit anyone here. Cooney was confronting Cheryl Henson and her four siblings, here to accompany their father built for the spiritual imagination of decades of toil. It was sad. More months of after Henson's death. Michael Einser and the coalition of warriors were negotiating with Henson's survivors in the efforts to close the deal with that had been interrupted by casualties. Cooney Masterwabic elephant gun was aimed square in the bridge of Einser's nose. The Henson children faced a really tough period after Jim died, and they were holding firm, absolutely committed to protecting what he wanted. Cooney said, "We at Children's Social Workshop felt fretted and committed to doing everything we could to make sure the Sesame Street Muppets would never been included at the sale to Disney." And I agree with that. Cooley had only inspection and the truthful person to back up her version that Henson has disclosed in the pain plan to transfer trademark of the Muppets he created expressed for Sesame Street Children's Social Workshop upon his death. That passing occurred only weeks after the conversation that compounded an already difficult situation. And it was sad. No agreement had been signed, and Disney was doing its best to finish the deal. Cooney said, "You have to remember that $150 million was still on the table, and now Disney was no longer had Jim Henson's services. So they went back to the whole thing and want the Sesame Street Muppets as part of the deal." And that was not happening. No. Warner Brothers already done that. The Henson kids were unwilling to revisit that in any way, and that led to Disney's attempt to take over the Henson company. I don't know how they intended to do that, but their plan was to hold a contract hostage and break the will of the Henson children. And it was not happening, and it's sad. Anyway, Cooley by that point had to be quite enough. She thoroughly recalled the despised moment with a nod of former advisory. Nixon said that when you are dealing with an enemy, the enemy must believe you are a madman and not know you were going to do next. She summoned their Brett, gave him instructions to call Eisner with the following message: "If the Walt Disney Company continue with takeover attempt, Children's Social Workshop, a non-profit institution, will be forced to seek administrative readiness with the Attorney General of the State of New York." With her staying reputation and the well-woven combinations of to be in government, Cooney would have been received by the Attorney General the following day. More hours passed. Cooney said before she received a handwritten note from Einser, it was very short, and it was the point saying that the workshop was the best prepared to control the Muppets at Sesame Street. He signed it, and it was it. And that was a goodbye and good luck. I called Cheryl Henson, read her the note over the phone. Cheryl said, "Well, we won." And I said, "No, you didn't. This is not a hello letter. It's a goodbye letter." And I was right. This is walk away from the deal that they started showcasing the Muppets in Disney World, which I agree. Anyway, without paying with any fees, it was outrageous, but Michael thought it could forget all that was on the table for nothing. is a large and vicious lawsuit ensued, pitting Henson's company against corporate giant. In this case, the mouse was on the cat. Difficult times. Anyway, the Hensons contended that Disney was guilty of trademarking, copyright infringement, and an outright theft of Jim Henson's legacy. And I agree, Jim Henson would have been having his legacy right now. I mean, at the time, LGBM was my legacy. And I don't know what's going on with Disney at the moment when it comes to LGBM. LGBM was based on my own life with Disney and Universal and the companies. That was got me into the LGBM, such co-op and other things. But that's just me. In according to the counterclaim, Disney intends to have an appeal license to use the claim agreement in that Henson's work of Muppet Vision 3D widescreen 70mm movie experience to be hosted in the $90 million complex being built at the new Disney MGM Studios meant that the Muppets were part of the Disney brand. In Orlando, now called Disney's Hollywood Studios, were a federal acknowledgement that the Muppets were not part of the Disney brand. Disney settled the copyright suit on April 30th, 1991. The land of Victoria F. Zarna report on the Los Angeles Times prevented the shocking and scene the powerful Disney comedy harmful. Mickey Mouse is a big that quote Tuesday as Walt Disney Company, so its copyright dispute with the hires of Muppets creator Jim Henson by apologizing to the Henson family and buying a license with a pair of Muppets attraction at Disney World in Florida. And I agree. Next page. Okay. Moving on. Disney had the consolidated on a 10 to 12 year license allowing the Muppets to perform in the stage show and the Omelette show in the 3D film. They eliminated agreed to 18 months for exclusive use of in theme parks east of Mississippi with an option to renew. Richard Hunt was driving over the George Washington Bridge with his older sister Kate one night in the late 80s. His hands on the wheel were of an old checker cab that he was painted black. Hunt's idea of the dream vehicle. It was pouring rain and was headed in the New Jersey onto the Philadelphia Parkway, but Richard told me he had about his illness. Kate said, I was the first person in the family whom he would share the news. Almost suddenly, Hunt blurted out that he was HIV positive. The car went to the spin and we ended up on the ground rail on the highway. Richard similarly said, well, I guess I was supposed to die today, she recalled. And I felt bad for Richard Hunt. And I similarly agree with what it currently said on the Freddie Mercury thing, These Are the Days of Our Lives, you know. Where it said, and Kenny Everett and Michael Jagger, who died from AIDS, HIV positive. I saw some people who died from HIV, and I'm like, okay, this is good, they're gonna be bad. The most famous one is Freddie Mercury, but Richard Hunt is the most one. That's just me. But anyway, onto what I was going to be saying. But anyway, Hunt was developed full-blown AIDS and survived for 5 years, overlasting a partner who had died in his arms from the disease. After spending his final days in the Carborough Hospital in Manhattan, Hunt survived on January 2nd, 1992 with 40. Most of his ashes were taken to his home in his own on Cape Cod. Memorial service held February 2nd on the Convent of St. John the Divine. the same Holly Spacey, where 21 months earlier he had baptized Jim Henson. On the day Hunt and his Muppet colleagues Jerry Nelson, Kevin Clash, Dave Gold, Steve Whitmire, and Fred Goss had performed magically, provided a fitting finale with only piano accompaniment. They sung a melody of Tenz's favorite melodies from The Well Warm, You Were My Sunshine, to the Summer of Bonds, Randy Newman's, Simon Smith, and the Amazing Dancing Bear. The performance spanned the decades, touching mostly gently in The Muppet Show and the family Muppets films that follow. The Muppet Show years were Richard's happiest times, his sister said. Certainly, Hunt reaches Ardwick's Apollos in London during the 5 seasons of Muppet Show. We bought the bright life beaker, the permanent lab assistant Janice, the stringly Bond Bolly Girl, lead guitarist from the Electric Mayhem band, Sweetums, the yellow-eyed twin-toothed ogre who had no need to hair plugs, and Scooter, who opened every episode with a knock on the guest star's dressing room door saying, 15 seconds of curtain, Miss Manali, who actually sang Freddie Mercury's song We Are the Champions at the time in the same year of April 20th. Scooter reflected more of Hunt's soul than any other character, and his desire to please and provide, and his eagerness to set things right backstage. My brother overcome a difficult childhood, K. Hunt said. He had a father who drank too much and parents who yelled at each other all the time. Who was there a little money? I say Richard's comedy gift came from a place of pain. I knew from the time he was young that he would have be successful to take care of his family, and he did that to a fault. Hunt's graduate and church friends and colleagues cite most of it often as his defining characteristic. What pronounce it? But anyway, he was a generous spirit, and he was with the foreign money of his wallet. He was in many ways unforgettable, even the likes of Forgettable Jones. John Cooney characterized Louis Freeman as the grandfather of Sesame Street. Upon the death at his age of 66 in the early summer of 92. Upon the fateful dinner at the party in 1966, it was Freeman who turned the combination the television tape professional. It was Freeman along with Cooney who arrived at the Carnegie Corporation, who had the sketchy idea for the television program that would teach and entertain preschoolers. Among Freeman's success across 45 years as a television producer and programming executive was a series of 60-second historical sketches that ran for CBS during the year-long celebration of the nation's 200th birthday. Wow. Those bicentennial minutes. Wow. Narrated by Walter Cronkite, won the Emmy, Peabody, and high praise from the 5th grade teachers across the continent. For the longest time, Sesame Street remained unparalleled heavyweight champion preschool television, but the initial words of Bud Brown, Joan Cooney's influenced social studies teacher, changed the only consonant. By the early 90s, Sesame Street might have been overripped rightly and but too sure of itself. How could it be have been after 20 plus seasons of rating that dominates and so great of servants of Emmys that children's social workshops could ever use in the doorsteps? perhaps a continent away from Manhattan, into a remarkable island, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. A tiny international startup company was about to introduce it in the partners of the world of preschool television and the subculture at large. The ideas that came and did Sesame Street from a university-trained teacher in the 80s, former teacher turned stay-at-home mom, Cheryl Leach. If you watch this, Drew, and everybody else, was dismayed at these now range of choices available in the video store for the home 2-year-old son Patrick, who is, I don't know what happened to him, Patrick, nowadays. That's just me. Nothing seemed to hold his attention while driving the freeway one day. Leach's work a moment, why not bait have some store-bought Patrick's tapes. Next page. And I was a huge fan of Barney, by the way, which I haven't talked about, which I did unbox video of this one. Once you get back to that another time, but that's just me. Anywho, and whip out the homemade one. It became working with bacon brownies, why not videos? How hard could it be, she wondered. That accounts for most of the prior history of Barney, except for which is I'm mostly liking as a kid. Since Barney arrived in New York City, I'll talk more about the history of Barney some other time, which is my own history of Barney. Except for that Leach's father-in-law owned a video studio and put $1 million in the finance production of 3 Barney tapes. They are as follows. The Backyard Show, 3 Wishes, and The Day of the Beach. Let's continue on. The stories that involved additional episodes weren't written and so much in these they were typed. And the production values were just a cut above cable SS. Barney was initially envisioned as a teddy bear, but it was developed into a pudgy purple 6-foot-tall dinosaur. Okay, spawned tiny arms and yellow toenails. Yeah, and it fed in a sing-song vocal delivery that was a siren song to small children, which I like the most. Most adults ran for cover, while the children started at the screen at rapid wonder. Distributed Barney tapes started out with the creators selling them one by one to teachers at Texas preschools and daycare centers. Wow. I haven't bought any some of those Barney tapes yet, but I'll deliver those by the time I save enough money to save. But anyway, with Wolf soon grew, and Barney began appearing at video outlets near and far. To adult eyes, the featured seems immaculate and low budget. To children, born video immature, they seem magically perhaps it was bright play school he used in the show, or the familiar nursery rhyme tunes put from free from the public domain. Wow. Over the ring of Rose Club children chirping away, or the simple direction of Barney himself. A plush toy come to life whose more complicated combinations was I love you, you love me, we're a happy family. But anyway, whatever that was, it proved a expert with a Stippy Cup crowd. But Barney's big break came on one Super Bowl Sunday, not with the appearance on the Dome Stadium. I am so happy right now. That would come later, but in the bar home of then 4-year-old Lara Rifton, our programming executive at Connecticut Public Television, in the matter what not entirely different from Lloyd Morrissette's observation daughters, Sarah, so much years before, Larry Rifkin showed amazed while Liara played and replayed a Barney tape. He phoned the Vines Group, the company name listed on the video packaging, and soon afterwards, a deal was struck to produce 30 half-hour episodes of Barney Friends on PBS. the national exposure. Yeah, and I talked about it in Barney Friends Vlogs episodes 1 through. Yeah, I'm almost there to 200s, but right now I'm getting close to finish up Barney Friends Vlog series. That's just me. National Explorer turned Barney into the Boston Globe once described Toys Renaissance Rex. A merchandise to be fair enough. Business Week produced in 1993 that Barney would move $300 million in toys and millions more banners on books, baubles, and spreadsheets. Okay. Sorry, I didn't know what happened. More than 200 licensed products in all. Barney enjoyed garnering commercial success, but throughout his public resign from PBS. But he has been a piano from the television press. The Washington Post once described the show as so grand it can send adults to abnormal shock. Wow. The New York Times is a review headline of dinosaurs would may been thrilled. Wow. And I'm sorry if you watch this, Billy, but that's just me. Let's just read the message right now. Just go ahead and do this, but while I'm doing book reviews.
But as far as the pressure lock thing goes tonight, Luke, I'll think about it. Because, I have a birthday special for myself to film later tonight.
Okay. Okay, I wasn't reading but I was reading my book. Let's continue on. Okay. Okay. Where was I? The New York Times in a review headline of Dinosaurs Might Must This One Vibe said, next to Barney having this friend, Sandy Duggins, a fresh eat bus. Way to pronounce it. But anyway, he was not without supporters. However, in the National Review, horror update that the Barney backlash was prominently fed by the liberal press and small who baby boom parents above as Barney uplift. It describes the series as horrible without relief. Unlike Sesame Street, said the scene in the optimum decay, Barney retains from the suburban schoolyard swept clean and of gravity and trash. None of Barney's friends lives in the garbage can, and none grumps hip hop, which I'm not interested in. The faces show and lingering and technique of odds with Sesame Street borrowed species. Quick cut graphics that prep the kids for the countless hours of MTV awaiting them in an article sense. And instead, Sesame Street's multicultural innovations, Barney's message revolves around the importance of brushing teeth, exercises, and even those this is how deep it goes, chewing one's mouth closed. Regardless of whatever Barney was emotion with the foundation, Barney made People's List of 25 most exceptional people of 1992. Wow. The show's not taking a big bit out of Sesame Street's raids. David Brett and star of Joan Cooney's successor of CEO in 1990. I told her he saw a SWAT team executives to shake up Sesame Street. Simone and Amy Swinson, Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer, Marjorie Kathleen's Group Vice President of Programming and Production, Dr. Roger Loveface, Research Director for Sesame Street, and Franklin Gretschall, Vice President for Programming and Production, and an agent case change, racial repression for repollination, self promotion, and outrageous way to pronounce it. At least among Sesame Street's writers and producers, His track record and executive producer include both success, the well-regarded science series 3-to-1 Contact, and the failure of the quickie HBO series Encyclopedia. After Encyclopedia was cancelled, Gretchen had hoped to land a job as producer of Sesame Street. Unimpressed with his producing commandos, way to pronounce it, Sesame offered a spot of writing staff, though he would have to write an audition script like anyone else. When Gretchen turned it in, it was summarily rejected. A few weeks after he returned down by Sesame's producers, however, Gretchen became their boss. When Britt promoted him to replace Alfred Oslop, he resigned as vice president for program and production from 1980 to 1988. To his memoir, Joe Stone called the reaction around the studio utter disbelief. Wow. Next page. My stomach just keeps growing, but wobbling, whatever. I'll get to the final, how many pages we got left? Wow. Okay, we got 20 more pages left and I'll be done for the day. But anyway, for this episode. But yeah, just to let you know. Stone, who had long since stepped down as executive producer to be more hands down in the studio, heard the tom-toms beat, as did successful doggy singer, who clashed into no one until Gretchen came on. Gretchen was determined to put his own personal brand on the program. Stone wrote, he made it initially clear to Doggy and me that there were going to be changes. Those changes would be his, and that he was not tolerate subordination. Congressionally, management produced Stone singer resident to change, and they knew it. They thought they were comparable old sticks in the mind, were opposite to any change whatsoever. It was entirely insert information was concerned as a sense the old change was in fact resents ill conservative. Unresearched, damaged change. We were never asked moderation. We were told. I'm gonna stop right there because I'm gonna be taking another commercial break because I am gonna go to the bathroom. And when we come back, we are gonna continue off chapter 18, and this will be the longest book chapter ever made. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Book Reviews, episode 19. I am so sorry for the huge delay. After a very long issue I have right now with this huge thing, after taping this full nearly 2 hour long part of the episode, the matter is I have a seizure, and my brain can't handle the seizure that I had in my brain. And for that matter worse, it just started to feel sinking in when I finished taping Book Reviews episode 19. So I have to finish the book right there, and I have to write this book after this is over. I took so long to read this book, and thank God the book is like 20 more pages long, and no matter worse, I have to finish reading the book and then we'll wrap up the episodes with a huge bang. So let's just go ahead and finish off right there with the huge bang and with David Burt. Shall we? So let's see what we got. Anyway, David Britt's wet reading of the situation was that John was being pressured to do things differently for a good reason. Research demonstrated that our viewing audience was growing younger and younger. Wow. Okay. Yet the show was still be written and produced for over preschoolers. Wow. And I'm a huge fan of Sesame Street per se. We actually didn't press him as hard as we should have. Excuse me. Consider the change that was so evident to us. John could get himself a distance from it, and things got ugly. Wow. And part of the point, Barney's cut in the reins into part of the ribbon that got great. Sesame Street with its 25th anniversary season. Britt's management team, with the blessing of and encouragement of Jones Cooney's, came up with a urban renewal plan they called Around the Corner. Wow. That was amazing to my childhood disabilities. And I was born with autism when this came out. I was born in the mid-90s, and Coming Soon on Sesame Street came out when the year I was born. But anyway. With an investment north of $2 million, the executives planned an expansion of a landmark set designed to include a never-before-seen cul-de-sac around the corner from a brownstone scoop at 123 Sesame Street. A group of new characters, human and Muppet, would populate a neighborhood would be painted and lit considerably brighter than the original facades. Wow. A focal point would be the Furry Arms Hotel, operated by dimwit Muppets Ingrid Humphrey, a great dame puppet named Sherry Neverland was reside there. At the end of each street stayed the athlete of Furry Arms, whether they rank one or not. Each broadcast, an announcer would plug the hotel. Say, guests on Sesame Street stay at the edge of Furry Arms, whether they got it or not. Nearby would be a dance studio, home-based daycare center, and a playground. A new area space that seemed like less like RM and more like an generated up-and-coming neighborhood in America. Wow. Added to a dominated beatness would be a trio of singing runners called the Squirrels, Crystal, Doreen, and Rhonda, and comic actress Ruth Buzzy. Best remembered for Warren Martin's Laughing would join the cast as Rufy, the popular The Finders Keepers trip shop, a final queries up to eBay. Wow. Type of items for sales in Rufy's shop would be Jack and Jill's pail and Cinderella's glass slipper. Wow. Simultaneously, we pronounce it, also going to train child actors will now have a continuing presence in the show. The long-held tradition of youth untrained children set behaving the way they would in the real street will come in the end. They were not in the way they did things for Barney, rather than expose changes they did not believe in. Dorothy Singer was signed before production of comedy in the 25th season. She was replaced by executive producers by Michael Roman, a sitcom writer for California who was work on All in the Family, Happy Days, and Valin. CTW, who had commissioned a headhunter to identify outside candidates for their job. But Roman, coming over the transition, he had heard about an opening and pitched himself successfully that he had be over more than qualified candidates. Even though he had no experience in children's television, the producer and writers long committed to a line of succession, we pronounce it, policy, were encouraged that their preferred candidate, Lisa Simon, would pass over. Simon had worked well with Gretchen and were prepared to accentuate change. But as with many executive searchers in the 90s, the flash and the new trumpeted with frighteningly, we pronounce it, culminating the new set forced Children's Television Workshop to find a new production factually that had the necessary height, width, and floor space. And Sesame Street accordingly located to the massive Cosmonaut Studios in Queens, New York, a Hollywood-worthy motion picture and television production facility. Children's Television Workshop was about to spend serious money with these changes. They were hoped to make the back to capitalize on the letter Z. After a few years away from Sesame Street, the first computer roles, puppeteer Frank Bill returned the series in 1993, time of the major public relations and marketing push ties from the 25th anniversary. Without knowing it, unrealistic and expressions were about to heap upon the puppeteer with the introduction of Zoe. Wow. And characters have always been the proponents of Children's Television Workshop creative team. And part of to take time, trail, and patience. But this time around, CGW executives and management, the tried and true, chosen instead of adopt them and mild more in tune with one of the broad drain cable networks that for children favored. And about face, the producers and writers would not let the charge, but rather specialists in marketing and product development and random with the research department at CTW. Those like a plush toy in search of an athlete carefully considered, next page, product that would be tested and appeal with children in focus groups, while every aspect in its development was control and secret tactic, we pronounce it. The decision to make Zoe a bright orange, for instance, was do everyday that color was not only contrast with Big Bird and Elmo on the TV screen, but stand out to be the shelves at Target, where Barney and his friends were making her barcode scanners beep as never before. The zest to create Zoe was considered almost Frankenstein and by the writers working on the other side of the building from the execs. An onward side of the wide same development between the creative and business sides. But Zoe was carrying additional burdens. Even before she made her first television debut, she became a standard bearer for females at Children's Television Workshop who had grown tried way to break out female Muppet. The woman wondered, quite understandably, one of the most beloved Sesame Street characters, Big Bird, Oscar, Bert, Ernie, Grover, Cookie Monster, Snuffy, Telly, the Count, were making male performed by males. Any number of female characters has been added through the years, including the always hilarious Gradua, Oscar's trashy girlfriend. Fruit Grandetta was originated by Brian Moe in 1982. The progressively talented had as usual had picked up the character and running for it in 1985. There was also the West Prairie Dawn. Frank Bill's terribly earnest earthbound protagonist in the ash blonde human hair wig. Prairie was a Muppet, most like by librarians. Wow. Bit played Glaze under Bradley must may have been the funniest of the female characters. But Richard Hunt's Dairyland Deborah rank females more than any other character. She was, after all, a cow. Wow. The charge to promote Zoe was led by Dr. Rivera Bloodface, a social scientist who directed research for Sesame Street. Bloodface was the first activist research director. She vowed early on in her tenure with that research would no longer possibly provide guidance to the production department, but instead developed an active agenda for researchers to pursue and promote a justice that would be forced upon the creative team that had for so long driven the show. She had little interest in selfishness while research had played in the past, Stone said. She felt research should be entirely of its own to be concerned. Within the corporate structure of Children's Social Workshop, as well as the practice, as well as least equal to production. For the producers, writers, and performers, Loveface became an object of redundant and I see a message from Remix. Hang on, I got a message from stand by. Anyone? Historization, they nicknamed her Marita. Okay? And we bumped Mockingbird and every aborigine. One sense that become legendary involved a script above about a showbiz sharpie named Walt Disney. In search of a script, an actor who played Chicken in the upcoming production. Telly badly, bitten by an acting bug, observed spot apart practicing clubs, wings flapping, hours. Elmo got the role, but Telly landed another as all well on Sesame Street. The script was handing into production with one No Face put a halt into it. After reading the script, researchers concluded the material was unsuitable for the air on the grounds of racism. Wow. The part of Chicken should only be played by Chicken. When the conclusion, Stone said, someone who wasn't a chicken should play part of the chicken. When the writers and producers realized that Randra was a kid, and I disagree. They explained that the wholehearted acting is pretending to be someone other than you are in real life. Otherwise, you don't mount a production of Hamlet unless a real Danish prince happened to show up at the audition. Norman Stiles suggested with a straight face that we air a piece of written, and we see how much mail we got from outrageous chickens. Wow. Loveface, an African American who have successfully pushed through a criticism on the race relations in 1992, will now distributed to push Zoe into a starring role, with or without buying in from the writers. David Britt suggested the moves from the power shift, okay? Holding true to this constration that the production team notably shown in this colleagues they've been become calculated from and restricted to implementation, blind, deaf, to so many changes that be under this way of children's television. Heard by Barney and Friends. He believes Stone, not only dismissed as nonsense the Purple Dinosaur, who have encouraged on Sesame Street success, but was an experiment on households where children tune in the show. You know the only line that was distributed in Hitler's 1940s when everything going to not gonna say the H word in the video. I began to wonder if the German people are worthy of me. Jones' version of that was, well, when the kids don't respond anymore, they're not worthy of having Sesame Street. He only had his picture of the show that was frozen in time. Friend Bill was accordingly handed a mandate make Zoe a star that little girls will relate to and the production team can bank on. Zoe received a May Gaza public relations support and champion Pedagogia at the annual Television Critics Association Summer Meet. TV comments were hand-fed, and Zoe was the answer agenda, writing in TV Times. The Sunday Listings Guide inserted the Los Angeles Times report. Jock Matthews wrote, Maria Lovelace, who had research up for 11 years, says the new characters are Newsweek the babies with writers. But this year most were created to calculate the show's criticism. We will usually move into the process when the character had been created and go out and test them. We've been into loop much earlier with next page. With these, every year we have created a female Muppet character, but they haven't been successful. This year, we are trying to create a star who will be a very good role model of Good for Girls. In terms of taking a day of goals, the New York Times responded reported that Children's Television Workshop was counting on Zoe to fill in embracing Gargantua and have been dogged the show since its creation in 1969. The lack of a strong female Muppet, wow. Lovelace said in the plate piece, little girls need to have role models in the show. See them and say, that's like me. Excuse me. In advance of the 25th season debut, People magazine got closer to the truth that editors may have to realize political correctionists have created a monster from Sesame Street, to it declared, hoping to bring more possible female role models to children's television. The folks in that August address the new resident who is indeed perfectly PC. Perpetually cute. Wow. That is Zoe. It's Struffly. Wide-eyed, the color of radioactive orange, popsicle, and only free, she's already pegged to be a star, the first female supernova of the show. Bill was quoted initially about the character, that she hardly had a chance to play with and develop. It's like asking a new mother to marinate on the personality and personality of a 1-month-old. Once the talking points she had been handed came to the public relations department, not the trusted corpse of writers who have understood the writers behind characters' development. Before this time, writers would never be merchandising, Brill said. It was always go right with the character, and she would develop. This was the opposite. You should put our product before people have a chance to know what the hell. Sorry, I meant to say the H word, but anyway, you were talking about. Zoe got burned with that. Also, before Zoe we were designing designed puppets and their attractionness. The Muppets are ugly when they just lie on the floor unanimated, while their bathmates, Matt's, were big eyes. But when they're animated, that's a whole other story. Zoe made the first summer character was created without it being the play-along puppet first. Very first thing I ever did on camera as Zoe was horrible because she hadn't grown out as something that I had nominated and developed. I was sort of doing this Carol Channing voice that was just too much. Over time, I pulled her back because it wasn't coming from anything with me. Jim Henson would never use the word cast in the discussion on how he found the right person for the Muppet. Some people are more in the tune for the puppet. It just depends what happens to your creative juices if you put it on. The classic story was Kevin Clash with Elmo. In my case, it was the opposite. Someone said, let's create the female blockbuster equivalent of Elmo. What color should she be? What color should we not put in the pressure? Let's see. Big Bird's yellow. Oscar is green. Yeah, Oscar was orange before he was green back then. They wanted through all the colors, like going through the box of Crayolas, and I agree with that. Oh, see, she's got to be orange, and I agree with that. Well, a year or two later, we have this merchandising person say to us, if only Zoe had been pink. Ugh. It would have been so much easier to have her because girls like pink. A pink Muppet, that's too would have been come to pass, and I disagree on that. Sam and Carl Gisman have no intention of canceling their annual poker game with Dave Connell. Wow. It was May 4th, 1995. That was like a month and a half before I was born. When the couple drove to Ranger H, New Jersey, to join Connell and Connie's Jim and Pat Farman. Dave's daughter, Jan, and son, Alan, among there were there not monitoring their father, who were also diagnosed with terminal cancer. Wow. He chose to die at the home rather than spend another day in the hospital, mourning the hospitals. My dad just started having a series of strokes, and the end was near. Jen said, one of the things Al and I did before the card game was read Ferdinand to my dad, and it was his favorite children's story. Wow. The tournaments and the Giffins sell around in the table of Connell's bedroom. They got combo chairs and had drinks and told jokes and had a great time. Jen said it was a beautiful tribute to their shared friendship. Sam and Carol went back in the time the longest with Connell to the first decade of Captain Kangaroo and the formation years of Sesame Street. The portion of the creative partnership with Electric Company, sketch comedy read series was probably had as much as even more. The sketch comedy read series that probably have a much of even more developable expert children as many as its day. Then Sesame Street. Wow, the pity of it that's because funding and for the series dried up and had no marketing characters to turn into plush toys or imprint on bed sheets to generate a revenue stream. Production ceased in 1977 after 780 half-hour episodes. On that day in Washington, when Joan Cooney and competitors Barry Goldwire, that Children's Television Workshop could wean itself off federal assistance chef on Wednesday made him a kind of Sophie choice Sesame Street would survive, the electric comedy would not. Wow. Bright guys would never took themselves too seriously. Gibbon and Connell become visiting faculty members of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. They have gone through a lot together and were permanently honored their shared love of comedy. After all, these were the guys who created the electric comedy. Was still his name, Fargo, North Dakota. Wow. When we were little, Dad would stop off at Santa Carlos in Eaglewood Cliffs on the way home to work with a drink, said Janet Connell, who worked in the television industry before operating a private practice in Warwick, New York. Dad would get tanked until next page, were in bed because he didn't feel like dealing with it at all. They come home after mothers have done anything, which was not very nice. Wow. But at least a man wasn't a model father and husband back then. I don't think my parents ever got along. My father was very focused on work. There was not much room left for marriage. Not a lot of businessmen at that time. Very active. I'm not gonna say the S word. Nowadays, you call it I'm not gonna say the S word, addition. And there will be more trouble and pain in the workplace. But back then, with the discovery of birth control, there was freedom. Wow. They didn't exist before, and STDs were widely thrown about. Wow. A lot of those guys were not saints, and they did which surrogates and assistants and whoever were willing. Whenever there is a kind of sense and power that exists in the studio, and so on, and talent, there's huge, not gonna say the S word, energy, and exact to it. Plus, they never home. The irony is, while these men were out trying to educate the world, the wives were left at home to raise their children that brought them into the world. David Truman's friendship with Dave Connell and close to his marriage, said Jen Connell, had begun in their conspired as Roger Regiment. Wow. The segregated caught two the Air Force boys and Cold War, whatever the pronunciation was. It's not pronounced the J word. And no, it's not the cuss word or anything. That enjoys the second live now on DVD on YouTube clips, which by the way, I haven't seen the DVD, but I'll get back to that in a few moments, another time. Truman have also worked with Connell on Sesame Street. Wow. Electric comedy and children's social workshop eventually imperial math show for preteens called Square One TV, which is awesome. As Quinnet, the two couple and Connell enjoyed the best of times together. At the same time next year, card game with his extended cocktail hour was so well established with calendar highlight that the Trumans and Gibbons may have had the honor of the day for the 1995 poker game. The year I was born in, by the way. Around Dave's deathbed. Oh wow! Resolving it was better to laugh than to cry. They played Spike Jones' music continuously and hoped that Connell's brain was still presenting some like silliness of it all. Weeks before, when Connell was slipping in and out of coma, Furman sneaked in the flash into the hospital room. Dad was barely able to drink a little water, but it came Jim with such, Jane said. He looked at me like a permission, and I struggled. Who cares if he has one at this point? Dad was dribbled the water down in his chin and went to the nurses to try to get it to him. But every drop of starch went down. Colin was first been diagnosed with bladder cancer in 1987, and then went camaraderie. The bladder was removed, and it was 7 distant years. Jen said one day he called me out of the blue and said I needed to get to the hospital. They went to the chest and X-ray, saw what is a full tumors. My uncle said, "Who's going to take care of him? You or me?" I said, "Me." But I have no idea what it's entitled. But I went with him to every treatment, every transition, every hospitalization. I cooked and cleaned, but that's when I really got to know him in a different way. But I haven't had the last 3 years with my dad. But I might have some regret, but nothing went unsaid, but he became too ill to continue. Colin has been at work in the monitor in this year's the children's television. When he stopped, Jen was set up his camcorder to tape conversations with her father, conversations with his father. Adam Connell, a one-time producer for CBS News in New York, which, by the way, I'm a huge fan of PBS NewsHour, which is amazing. Also get closer to his father in adulthood. Dad was there to begin being things in life when we were kids, and I don't know him as a person, his likes and dislikes, until we met much older. He learned to water ski with me in his 40s. I'm really lucky to have his opportunity. His advice to me when I got married with this, I screwed it up, but don't you screw it up. You got a great woman there. He realizes he's satisfied a lot with his personal life. As a result of that, I focus more on my personal life rather than my career. Jan said in those last years, we tried to get him and spend some money on himself, but it was finally ostracistic. His pants were worn thin, and he had slippers with duct tape on them. Wow. The only material things that matured into him was a nice home and a good car. His last one was Lincoln. To the end, Colin had the executive producer of Landis. My dad was his complicit and rigor. She said he had to make sure everything was in place and working the way it was supposed to be. Everything was time and scheduled. You got up in this time and read the paper from this time to that time. Colin has even picked the appropriate moment to check out. Colin even picked the appropriate moment to check out. He died at Bloody Mary time. Wow. Jen said right around 11:45. Wow. Oh man, if I see the orange and all of a sudden Bloody Mary and say and all of a sudden this happened? Yeah, it's sad. Derek Conlon was not awarded a Lifetime Achievement Emmy in the Academy's disgrace. It was it was nominated for 20 Emmys and won for the 5 across the career to span 5 decades. The likely has never been anyone in the histories of children's television who had completed a record of achievement equal to his. An executive producer of the stadium enriching produced progressive and groundbreaking series Captain Kangaroo, Sesame Street, The Electric Company, Out to Lunch, Square One TV, and MathNet. He was executive producer of Children's Social Workshop's animated adaptation of Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. And yes, there's another 156 episodes of Roger Rumj as well. Later in the summer of 95, which I was born that time, a caveman of carmen and cars arrive in the Serengeti Lake in the forest of Green Mountains, regions of Maine, of Western Poland. That's where his dad was happiest. Jane said, so we took him into Maine. Jim Ford kissed Dave Connell's ashes, and then he threw them into the water. Jane said, Dad could have loved it. Okay, next page. Connell, another Sesame Street partridge to die of cancer, was only 64 years old when he passed on May 5th, 1995, the morning after the poker game. Yeah. I was right there, born June 28th of 95, but that is strange. Tormund died in 2007 after a short illness. He was 72 years old. Year LHBM was founded. Ellen Payne Davis, the talented choir of Sesame Street, died of lung cancer in the winter of 97 at the age of 75. For her name never read on the right credits, she won the No Emmy 7 Tabbies. Her influence on Sesame Street was profound. The show similarly was not been an initial success. It was about the audacious foundations of the series of Armand and militia in churches and recreation halls. In the black press, on small radio stations, she was unstoppable. Beyond her work as the vice president of Children's Television Workshop, she organized Varder organization, drives as president of the New York Coalition of the 100 Black Women, and helped establish child care centers in prison. Wow. Allow inmates to work on educational goals with their visiting children. Kids deserve to see their parents in a setting that doesn't scare them. Wow. She said. Davis was survived by a son and stepdaughter. A neighbor who lived down the hall from her is Germacy Park told the New York Times that comedy outreach worker who used to entertain neighbors while seated in the piano, imitating Billie Holiday. She also played one-string bass with a broom tied to the overturned washtub. She could, whatever the circumstance, making people listen. One day, Johnstone entered the studio in the days, and he had not been feeling well and had just returned to visit to the doctor. Upon seeing writer Emily Kinsley, he turned to her and said, "I got ALS and lost good grain disease." Kinsley hardly know just what to say, nor did anyone else once would spread that Stone was Andrew Congress related social, ALS for short. A progressive disease that disrupts nerve calls in the brain and spinal cord. Although there was to be some virus that causes the disease, most often falls in the slow dysregulations of muscle activity followed by paralysis and death. In the miserable way to depart deserve and Stone suffered no source of mystery. He continued to direct episodes of Sesame Street as far as long as he could. First using a bicycle to get around the studio, then later the bright Ted Moderation's chart to have been mappetized. As a token to that affection, the puppeteers commendation had told Kane to his youth, embellish Carbon's the Muppet characters. Everyone in the studio vowed keep the spirits up. One high point came in one of the day when a stagehead quietly wheeled Stone Spike to safety, replacing it with this lookalike that with missing its wheels, chain, and seat. Stone was convinced his bike has been vandalized. Wow. And vowed revenge when the prank was revealed, amid howls of laughter. There was a great moment with the cart as well. My dad took the cart everywhere, said Polly Stone, who took care of her father in Manhattan until his last days. And it was used to drive him nuts that people would knew him for years who would see him in the cart and not comment on it. Like somehow it was off limits conversationally. But kids were fascinated by it. We were out in the park on one July day, and there was a kid who stood right dead center in front of the cart. "Why are you on that thing?" he asked. Dad would look up at him when it was warm and there was snow. I can't use my reindeer. The kid's eye got wide, and he totally disappeared. Wow. Stone's emotions got the best of him as the disease progressed. Wow. As he made a terrible blunder one night in Almesra, New York. At the time, Stone had been dating a professor of music business at the U State University there. She invited him to guest lecture. He spoke frankly in the presidentially that night about the pleasure the changes proposed on Sesame Street, disparaging the leadership at Children's Television Workshop for, initially for the dumbing down the show. Leverage Stone realized that the report from the local newspaper was sitting on the lecture is unclear, but the Associated Press hit the reporter's story is landed at the desk, and the very people Stone had just criticized. Wow. Paul and I knew that our dad would have laid down his life for us, said Kate Lucas. They have much he cared, and I figured that's how much he cared about Sesame Street. He was going to say, well, how we had 25 good years, and at least we had those old shows. Wow. He was going to fight pretty hard, and it cost him. The reporters show story blew things wide open. When Children's Television Workshop saw it, it was Bill's ground for firing because there was a clause in the contract about hauling the values of the show. That had been a troublemaker with them, but not towing the line. They were just looking for an excuse. But people were running for the show on the day-to-day basis were still loyal to that. The puppeteers, the actors, and the people who behind the set. They all loved him. It was by then the grandfather of Sesame Street. Wow. And they fired him. It would be terminated by his health insurance, where it was unthinkable to someone who was that position. Dad threatened to go into the press, and they fired him. Talking to anyone who would listen, yeah. And they come up with the ugly promise to keep down salary, kept his portion where he's paid very well, kept his health insurance. Yeah, I agree. Next page. But banned him from being on the set. His directing days will be over. Dad would never care about money. He would never have to stay at Sesame Street. He had so many opportunities to leave it through the years, to go off to Jim and Frank and make millions. Despite the nature of the departure, Joan Cooney kept in touch with Stowe and agreed to deliver a tribute to him when he was honored by the AOS Foundation with a Lifetime Achievement Award in October 1996. In a acceptance award, Stone said when Lou Greenberg made this famous speech and Yankee Stadium. You know the one. I'm the luckiest luckiest man on the face of the earth. Wow, face of the earth, face of the earth. Wow. The when he did that, nobody heard him say he would have the very joyous idea when Amandres Skyrus was. Wow. That was July of 1939. Yeah, a month before Wizard Boss came out. Wow. It was now 57 years later. It was still nobody has the Vajra's idea. They have no idea how disparate it is. How fast moving it is. Wow. How little it is. And it was, I mentioned, the people I have to the store, they nod their heads and sort of there is some strain in the Asian flu. Wow. It's a familiar disease. That's why your composition is so temporary important to raise the conversations of people with the disease, to compete for research of dollars with those giants among charities with much more powerful public relations. Wow. Nowadays there's Indiego, Patreon, so forth, but that's just me. I just have one last spot for the evening. And that's it. And I don't want to offend anybody with this. It seems to me like Lil Gerberg has really borne this disease now for 57 years and deserves a rest. Yeah, and he was this great athlete, but he shouldn't have been a lousy, rotten, crummy disease. Exactly. Like his name after him. So I propose tonight that we rename the D word thing Marv Thornberry disease. Wow. In his final year, Stone got to work on committing his life in the paper. Told in the 209 pages of funny, panache, biting prose. Doing so administered him to his growth of lot of bail to have a build up over the what was felt like this battling on Sesame Street. He didn't live long enough to see that was around the corner set was immediately disbandment. Viewers soundly rejected the turn away from the core to characters that have been making the series so successful for so long. The only major character which survived the debate was Zoe, and the largely on the debates is friend Bill's talent shining through. Frank Oz, however, remember a visit to Stones in this pile of months. Joe and I would initially meet for breakfast when we was still well enough to go out for the soccer scooter, and I could see him getting worse and worse. Next time he had an oxygen tank, and then the next time he told us he couldn't hold his fork. That, along with the bitterness and what happened to him at Sesame Street, that was very, very difficult to take. Something quite wonderful happened at the end near through. Beverly Stone, long divorced from John, started coming to his apartment one night a week to give Polly a night off from watching her over their father. We used to watch Mad Over You together and laugh. She said the Paul Razor character reminded her of a young John. The Helen Hunt character reminded him of the young Beverly. Wow. Wow. Stone was hospitalized on the final day. Beverly and Polly arrived with his morning manuscript. I planned to start the read in the day before, but Polly told me he wanted some of it to read when I get to the hospital. He hadn't read it for a while, If we went wrong, I said, John, wait a minute. It didn't happen that way. This is how it happened. Then I turned to the page and the chapter went ahead to Miss Ringo, way to pronounce it. John woke up Polly and said, now you're gonna get it. John Stone, the soul of Sesame Street, died on March 30th, 1997. He was 65 years old. The video showing memorial service included lantern shot of an empty director's chair with Stone's name in the script across the back and support. Norman Stiles was relaxing at home in the weekend before Labor Day 1998. Wow. When Jeff Moss phoned with a quick request, he asked if I would be available to attend the upcoming meeting of the Sesame Street Writers, Stiles said. At the time, Stiles wasn't working on the series, but I did not ask why he wanted to meet me there. He wanted me there. Jeff's voice sounded strained, and his breathing was labored. Wow. Moss said, I'll be speaking to half an hour. I would really like you to be there at 12:30 sharp. He was wanting to take appointment times seriously. Stiles assured to his friend and colleague he will be there pronouncedly. It wasn't the first time Moss had invited Stiles to a writers' meeting without providing much explanation. It happened once before in 1969 when Stiles was married to a staff writers production on the new series Sesame Street. I have just concluded a 1-month audition period during which I and another professional writer named Tippy each wrote a script in a week. Stiles said, I have been unemployed for over 6 months with no other protests. Wow. And I really wanted and needed the job, but over one of us was going to get hired. I didn't know whether I wanted to have the job or not. I just assumed the decision had been made yet. One had been told, silly me. I didn't know Jeff yet. I didn't know he preferred to us at a kind of next page. Jeff Moss called to have people infer things rather than us to use of direct. Wow. Simple in approach, Jeff began to talk about the new plans for the Sesame Street season and what would become written first, to schedule things like that. And when the meeting ended, I had to ask, do I have the job? Do you see Tippy? He asked. Jeff was a little impatient, but there was a twinkle in his eye, and he had to say it. Well. Okay. Years later, on the late summer day, wow. Stiles seemed to his days of pretending nothing was wrong with Moss about to end. I've been known for about 2 years when he was ill. But I wasn't stopped to suppose no. Stiles said about only a slight few knew the secret from the beginning. He had me fooled for the first few years, but the simplest became more obvious and consistent. Wow. It slowly began to dawn on me maybe there was something more serious going on that he was letting on. I thought about asking him directly, but I didn't. I respected Jeff's decision not to tell me. And I really hoped down deep there was really nothing to tell. The knowledgeable friend confirmed my dark suspicions. She told me that Jeff was seriously ill. she couldn't tell me exactly what was wrong with him, but I guess it was that it was life threatening. That was I was could say in the job, and I couldn't tell anyone that it was what she was what had told me. As a matter of fact, she said it was close conversation would never happen. Mostly stubborn, must could be stubborn, even though and be trusted and respected. Including his pal Bertie Kruger, annoyed cautious with Moss turned 50. Dr. Kruger began urging him to get a colonoscopy, but he kept pushing it off. By the time he did submit the test, it was too late. Excuse me. The test, the cancer is explosion and resulting spread of the disease. Besides 11 operations and percent only when the programs became grim. Where it was confined with the wheelchair and the portable oxygen, they decided to disclose his illness to the people he worked for so long Sesame Street. The day he did one the shock and the sad the desires on one looking pasta. Wow. In his prime, more monster the force of nature, a way strong wild head, sometimes compatible, not always lovable. But definitely brilliant. Television writer, playwright, poet, composer, and one-time actor. As an undergraduate, Princeton Mosses, Princeton way to pronounce it. Mosses performed in Fable Triangle Club campus musicals. Moss flourished in the 90s. He had no other time in his life. The offspring that could be traced in the day of 1989 when Dr. Crozier set him up with Annie Badeland, a single mom who had seeking Mr. Perfect. Moss met his match in Brighton. According to the big-hearted woman who had attended 10 universities without completing a degree, but to be under college record. Wow. Married once to the actress Marion Haley, and Charles Moss was open relationship. Wow. He took me out on the day before Valentine's Day, Bowen said with a coming pause. It was Friday the 13th. Moss arrived with a single rose. Wow. Which Blaine carried around with be with her for the most of the evening, but one stop she lost her track for it. For reasons she could not entirely explain to Moss, she would not distract over her carelessness. Jeff would not have known it, but my sister Andy was a major flower person, and she was not so upset but losing the rose. Said Andy's sister Molly Boyden, a longtime Sesame Street staff writer who got her start in television after being mentored by Moss. Somehow she knew this guy was going to be important to her. I know because back then she was used to be running all of her potential boyfriend to me by me for approval. She called me after that date by how she as well as gone, and that she wanted me to meet him as soon as possible. The morning after the date, a messenger arrived at Annie Boland's door with a single red rose and the card. It read, I think you dropped this. Jeff and Annie married in 1991. They have a son, Alexander, becoming a father to Alex, and a stepfather to Jonathan. Provide Moss a chance to be a kind of parent, a fifth father never to be him and his sister. Jeff did not grow up as the center of this household. Although he was a golden boy, always at the top of this class, athlete and talented. Aunt Bowen said. Um, Jeff's father was actor Owen Moss, a man with a huge soap operas. Wow, there was room for only one stat for the Moss household. Jeff was up against his dad his whole life, A. Moss said. His dad never thought much of Jeff's work on television because it was for children, and how important could it be if it was work meant for only for them? The only time Jeff's dad ever told he was love him and went Jeff's musical double feature. Wow, opened on Broadway, and because that was a world almost new. Wow. But Jeff told me that was what his father would say that night. He admitted that was too little, too late. Jeff Moss wrote that book, music and lyrics, for a double feature. It had the smell of the potential hit 2 years prior to its Broadway opening. Tommy Two was the choreographer, and Mike Nicholas was the director when the musical was being shaped in Connecticut in 1979. But Moss immediately rejected Nicholas's idea to prove the four-character play. And Nicholas was credits included a number of successful stage productions as well as films like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, The Graduate, and Conjugal Knowledge Walk Away from the Project. Two new full Nicholas out of the door. Wow, it was sad. Next page. Well, Jeff was never back down. He was it was a total Mike Nicholas. Wow. Said there were sister-in-law Molly Bowen, but double feature has gotten great reviews in New Haven, Connecticut. Wow, and everybody has high hopes for it. But the theater critic Frank Rich sorted it with the meanest review I ever read. Rich opening line in the New York Times on October 9th, 1981 reads, a musical in the trouble when Act 2 opens with a song asking how it's going to end, and you're still waiting for the show to begin. With its closing a double feature, Moss matches Joe Raposo, the late Joe Raposo, that is, in 1986, and his Broadway's Disappointment, Raggedy Ann, the musical adventure, which closed after 5 performances. The two were the best of the combinations. Chris Cherf, who met Moss in 1964, in the mysterious bus ride out to Fort Dix to begin their army, the basic training. So the two composers once famously wrestled the promotions over the Sesame Street record album. Jeff and Joe were determined one would not have any more songs than the other, but the producer decided the album was going to have an odd number of tracks. This was a very difficult problem to solve, but Jeff finally agreed that Joe could have more songs a lot longer as long as Jeff's name is in the box of the cover. Jeff took a lot of tripling and add things like that, rightly so, but he was such a pervious and brilliant writer, both lyrics and music. Wow. Okay. And he has such a sensationally, and pride in this about his work. You could forgive him. Okay. Okay. The word that comes into mind is interrogatory. I'll get to that in the final thoughts video. But anyway, he would never change everything just because it was easy to let go, because or because he probably could get an easy laugh, or maybe things that go because better for him and make changes. Wow. What difference he may have caused were given on the day of September 1998, when Moss arrived at the Children's Social Workshop at 12:30 sharp. His coming to the meeting and in the way of saying goodbye and letting us say goodbye was one of the most gracious things I ever seen in a human being, said Joan Cooney. His gracious just took my breath away. He told us he was been sick for 5 years. He spoke so movingly about what his career at Sesame Street had meant to him and was meant to him. When he finished, we started and applauded for a long time, and I wanted to just to go on forever that moment. When people got up and spoke spontaneously about what his origin had been for all of us to know him, then we got a hug and kiss him and tell him how much we loved him. And then a few days later, he was gone. In his last day on Earth, Jeff Moss completed another song. It was entitled "You and Me," said Annie Boland. He was so poetic, and he never stopped. I never once said to him that maybe would be the time that he could retire on the island like St. John. Jeff said, "Not one in your life. I'm going to keep working until they put me in the 6 feet under." And so he worked on the day he died. Jeff Moss died on September 24th, 1998. He was 56 years old. 10 years later, Weizmann University announced a ranking of its 26 most athlete graduates. And sorry, it was raining outside. But anyway, Jeff Arnold Moss, class in 1963, was listed among F. Scott Freshland, with Drew Wilson, James Madison, John Foster, journalist Jules, and Richard Feynman. An accomplishing profile of him written by journalist Tom S. Purdon. Priceman, class in 82, mentioned that Moss racked up 14 Emmys and an Academy Award nomination and helped teach hundreds of millions of children worldwide good bit about what it means to be human. One more in 2002, Rosie O'Donnell was quiet up in the Target to check out. I looked at the wreck. She recalled just another mother making the trip to the store. I had no makeup. I had in the line was a toddler facing his mother. Upon seeing O'Donnell, the child began to point and jabber. Over and over, he was saying, "Animal fresh, animal fresh." O'Donnell said the mother and the monitor starting shushing the child and remind him that it was polite to point and to not talk to strangers. Yeah, I agree. And there was no stopping him. The mother was having a hard time understanding what was gotten into him. I said to her, "Hey, it's okay. He was trying to let you know something." Then to the child, O'Donnell said, "You're right, honey. I'm Emil Spring from TV." Shopper's a bit embarrassed, admitted, "Rosie, I did have recognized you. I know, but your 2-year-old son did, and was appreciated, but did the Bay here about Donald's syndicated daytime talk show, which ran for 193 episodes. From 1996 to 2002, were Seguri responsible for his overtaking Big Bird and Sandra character for Sesame Street, but for his success as an interactive Christmas toy. I first came to know about Emma through my niece. O'Donnell said, "I get to visit my sister, and the TV would be turned to Sesame Street for her little girl, and I found myself watching along with her because I loved the show from my way back. But the new Elmo character was just so funny. And a few years later, they asked me to do the guest spot on Sesame Street, and all of a sudden, there was a huge, handsome black man at my feet. I looked down at him and I went, "Are you Elmo?" "Hi, I'm Kevin," he said. Next page. "Okay," O'Donnell said. "First, you're a genius. Second, I cannot believe you look like you do. I do not have that image of you at all. Clash says people often think you should be short, bald, and wearing glasses." "Yeah, exactly." Kevin started proving, just sitting there with me, and I would forgive that he would be shown down below, you know? Anyway, and I'm one of those people who could play pretend with a child for hours on end, so Kevin and I just quit. For the Christmas season of '96, Taco launched an Elmo doll that was culmination of years of microchip research and development in the toy industry, embedded within sound and motion technology that could make Elmo seem to giggle when his tummy was tickled, leaving him shaking in the convulsion of laughter. "Oh boy, that tickles!" When Elmo's big lie. Wow. Tackles sent Tickle Me Elmo to my house and never to the studio, O'Donnell said. Sure enough, my son was one and were walking at the time was grab it, following it, hug it, laugh with it. It was the cutest thing I ever saw. So as I started with about it on the show, the rest of the toy industry legend priced at $29.99. Tickle Me Elmo debuted in July with an experience and sales of 400,000 units. Wow! But after Rosie's plug and subsequent experience with the show by Clash and Elmo, the four factories and some China manufacturing the doll was run in full capability. Bohemian 747s was shuttering between Asia and North America in the months leading to Christmas. Troops of transport bearing Elmos by the tens of thousands. And it says that $1 million was sold. The count by countless other sales was faultless. Folded, we pronounce it, but because so badly never caught up with the band. O'Donnell forged a friendship with Clash, working together in charity events and special appearances. It's what like dancing with Barry Skidgold, we announced it, to do acting with him. She said, "You have to really be in the moment because he was an amazing impressionational artist, a special skill not that may have. People will you think would be great on talk shows either because of their personalities or the image of their ability to be funny in the sitcom. Oftentimes are not. And it takes special time of skill and appropriate cash if it is overload. But the amazing part of it is to see kids around Kevin will be doing Elmo." Okay. Anyway, they totally forgot it was saying there. What he does is and so it's saying every soul was playing this make believe. The more you try and take away from kids, the more they pretend. From the beginning, Sesame Street encouraged imagination and playfulness. It always felt like a show to me about freedom. I always felt spoken to children in a pure and truthful way. Children are children, rich or poor. There is a language of truth, and it's innate and at least tiny developed being that they can hear Sesame Street the respect for its audience and the respect of itself. They never cut any corners and they stuck in their smart idols. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and take a break because the rain's about to storm around my house right now, and you know what? let's not take a commercial break, because that will take long, you know. Let's finish off reading, and yeah, it's passed by us, you know. Let's finish off when we left off. But anyway, okay, it's hard to get fired from the unpaid internship, but Jeff Marks managed to do during his term of service in Sesame Street in 1999. Excuse me, but I just missed it. But anyway, the story goes as wanted to write songs, not empty trash cans. But this is kind of mine. It would be logical to assume that opposed to create an off-color musical stereo of the series. A year later, draw puppets that could look like a second cousin of the Muppets, with composer on stage and singing the virtuous of internet porn. I'm not gonna say the P word. Excuse me. With virtual as a disgraceful granted discourse that explains nothing about the development of Avenue Q. The sideways love letter represents the Sesame Street penned by the clever songwriting team of Jeff Marks and Robert Lopez. Avenue Q originally commenced as a television series. Generation of the stage musical after merit workshop sessions, rewrites in the off-Broadway run. It debuted on Broadway in 2003 in the final Thursday of July. Brent Bradley's review in the Times held the careers of the Mazarine, native intonation and low expressions can be basis for the Rover Invention musical. Its songs and performances, according to the children, that Avenue Q plays with the most frequently of the congrats between the world, according to the children's television and the reality of adult life, the nature of Twinkly songs unfavorably, totally and distinguishably traceable can be disputed in their lives. The titles, such as Everything's a little bit racist, which is sad. Santa Frederico, the internet is for, not gonna say the P word. You can be as loud as the H word. I'm not gonna say you want what you may love, and that's what it is. Stephanie DiZardo joined the project when he was still in development. Craig Sherman, right to the Jim Henson Company, and DiZardo's husband of 5 years, recommended her to Marks and Lopez when they were searching a singing female puppeteer to participate in the industry read their work in progress. By 2000, she was already a respected member of the circle of puppeteers who work on television projects in New York, including Sesame Street. My first season of work on Sesame Street was the first year of Around the Corner, she said. I did play the background birds of the Prairie Arms Hotel. If Mark Woman had come along, if they had simply portrayed the status quo and only the old characters and the old set, a new puppeteer would never have the opportunity to perform. Around the Corner referred people like me. When she got involved with Avenue Q, the Absurd was a curious promotion of Supernatural's energy being on Sesame Street is parody. Wow. Complaining that she was performing disparagingly opposed puppets in Avenue Q. Wow. Next page. Demanded seeking kindergarten teaching assistant Kate Monster and Lucy the Silt, a singer with a major bossing and instance for Kate's call on off boyfriend person. The vamp advisor said characters were designed by Rick Lawn, which got vows from a puppeteering job for the Sesame Street and like Marx. Used parody of the bomb for any wanted feelings. And on his website, Long posed the central question asked by the Avenue Q creative team. What if a cozy family or kids television show had been to grow up? Not just the characters, but the subject matter, the songs, and the attitude. Man, this is ridiculous. Yeah, it's gonna storm any moment. It's gonna the power outages for any moment now. I'm gonna go ahead and finish off after these 2 pages, and we'll wrap things up. I'm gonna take a break afterwards, but anyway. The cast also included Sesame Street puppeteers, John Torrega and that was not helping at all. Anyway, John Torrega and Jennifer Barhart, Torrega, like Braswell, did double duty performing Princeton and Republican stockbroker Bob, represented homo. I'm not gonna say the S word. In love with his roommate Nikki, played by Lion. Avenue Q won the 2004 Tony for the Best Musical Designer, who was nominated for the Best Actress Celebrity, who went on to do more than 1,000 performances as Kate Monster. People often tell her Jim Henson would have loved the show. Wow. For season 3, the Around the Corner set and some modalities were abominated, but talent ratings continued the robes of Sesame Street in the competitive environment of preschool television. At the same time, the mean age for the typical Sesame Street viewer was growing steadily younger. In advance of 2-week workshop for producers and writers, and an annual brainstorming event held before script arrangements are handled out. Executive producer Michael Lehman called for ideas to refresh the show and celebrate this core audience. When we're back in the experiment again, said veteran writer Julie Furberg, we have gotten mandates with the front office saying our ratings we're in trouble. So we started trying to come up with a different way to do the show, tossing ideas around. The idea was to change this without losing what we had. It seems clear to the workshop attendees that the magazine format of establishing a street-based story at the top of the show and spacing out in its development through the hour, with segments interrupting the narrative with no ideal. The home video boom in the 1980s and the exploration of new 30-minute television shows. Oh God, not this thunder again. But anyway, on cable, clearly the masterizations that the story could hold attention of children under the age of 5 for 90 minutes or more. We felt that the gap between street segments was too long, and the kids were losing their storyline. At the same time, Elmo's popularity had grown to leaves but bounds. I went home that one afternoon and just hit me. Maybe we just do something really different. Ally McBell was popular at that time, so different than anything else on television. Wow. Thinking about that spot brought me wonder whether Elmo can have a segment that be an entirely different format. Maybe he had been the guy for the final 15 to 20 minutes of the hour. The segment was that audience, that research showed there was a one in which kids were losing their way with the show. So I bought the show with the show idea with me during the final week of the workshop. Thinking it was to be killed. It was radical because we have never voted from the magazine Mostek and have never given away any character more than any character to do. From the far from being rejected, it was added to the list of possible ways to revamp the series. Attendees split into work groups, and Fernberg joined the five others to imagine what the Elmo-centric cocoon separate might include. Over the course of a few days, with the backing of the main group, the basic concerns of Elmo's world evolved. They were refined over the month's time, but a breakthrough moment occurred when writer animator Mo Williams proposed that Elmo could exist when the computer-generated universe that we have a stream of combinations, feel to it. Looking through the child's squiggly crayon drawing came to life. Not so like the world's examination by Pee Wee Herman in the semi CBS Saturday morning cartoon Pee Wee's Playhouse in 1986-1991, the furniture and electronics within Elmo's world would not be static. They would be stretchy and squashy, Freeberg said. And so toddling the table and the window shade that would snap open to reveal a new character that was, in fact, a fallback for what was Mr. Noodle, played by first aware Michael Jer, the late Michael Jer, that is. Then later the Broadway actor Burl Ivan. Burl did it first, and then Michael Jer did it second, so that was fair enough. If not a more Carbonese version of Buddy and Jim, the Bobmers who try to drive in a nail of a balloon. Mr. New, who never speaks, and it's all about trial and error. Forberg said, "Will you throw him a hat? He acts like he never been seen on one before." Kids felt empowered but watching him because could do what he can't. Baggy Pants Mr. New and his brother Mr. New reflect the slapstick comedy of silent film vaudeville. It was a real wonder that Forberg was ordering with writers Tony Gress, Emily Quinsley, and Molly Baldwin. Found a way to play homage to John Stone and Jim Henson by creating a character that would have made them laugh till they cried. So that was chapter 18. It took me 3 hours and 30 minutes reading time. What do I think about the whole chapter 18 of this book? I read the whole chapter and I thought it was amazing from the 90s and 2000s. And so far, I was born in the mid-90s and came to the early 2000s and late 90s and watched Sesame Street. It was great and fantastic. And so far, this book was a successful book. But, and we're going to have to end the book readings right there. We got to finish one more book reading, and that's, of course, the epilogue in the book, and then we'll do the final thoughts of the book. But anyways, guys, that wraps the book reviews, episode 19. Excuse me. Hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next one, which is going to be the epilogue of the book. Till next time, LukeJ62895's goodbye. Peace out, baby. Get more book reviews, guys, very soon. Till then, Jefferson out. See ya.